The Bible is arguably the most enigmatic book of all time. Its depth and richness of narrative, songs, poetry, law, prophecy, and eschatology is unrivaled in its class. This text confounded many for centuries. Attributed to the divine inspiration of the Most High Yah, only a select few were privileged to be able to unravel the mysteries that lie beneath. Today, there are tons of academic gatekeepers who have been able to unlock this coded script using a variety of techniques mostly unknown to laymen. However, today this is no longer the case. Thankfully, Divine Prospect has spent 15 years playing the spook who sat by the door to gather intel on how to best approach the text and get the most objective understanding possible. He is making these techniques available to the general public in the upcoming KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible study classes. For the first time, be able to read the text the way it was intended by the author to his immediate audience. Once you've been able to successfully decipher the scripture, you will then learn how to map it to modern times and yield a harvest of actual results. Sign up today by going to www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect and join the $50 tier to reserve your spot. Seats are extremely limited, so take advantage of this opportunity before it's too late. Peace and shalom.
All right. Okay. We back in the building, family. What's going on? It's your brother, Divine Prospect of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, back with another Freestyle Friday session in the building. This is January 2nd, 2026. Yo, I messed up the title. Let me go ahead and fix it. I put 2025. Oh, I'm a time traveler. Let's go ahead and correct that. This is when we got to get used to this Gregorian calendar changes or calendrical changes. This is wild work. All right, I changed it. All right, so we're back in the right time. This is not 2025. 2025 is gone according to the Gregorian calendar. That is gone. We are now in a new calendrical year based on this civil calendar that we use day to day. However, it is not the springtime, so hold your horses, pump your brakes for that. And we will enter there on April 2nd, Most High willing, 2026. All right. Okay. All right. Things got a little stirred up from a little post that I made. I don't know why. But then again, I do know why. Now, before we begin, if anybody's interested in getting one of these cool fees, let me know. Email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you're interested in the piece right here, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. And if you're interested in the t-shirt, let me show you the t-shirt a little bit, right? New Testament believers, be like Jesus, a Torah keeper to the end. We got a John version, a Peter version, a Paul version, and this Jesus version, right? So pretty much what this is, it is a walking advertisement for Christians to go back in Torah and examine it and understand it, so that way they can then look at the New Testament with new eyes, not the presuppositions and the dogma and stuff that they've been given previously, but with new eyes. And these new eyes are not new eyes. They're actually old eyes, but they seem new because they've never seen the text in this way before. But I understand in the Torah, you would not understand the New Testament at all. But I understand in the Tanakh, which includes the Torah, you would not understand the New Testament at all. Without understanding the intertestamental period and the work stemming from the history coming from that, you will not understand the New Testament at all. So why even touch the New Testament if you don't have a background and information and understanding of those previous works, history, etc.? So the shirt is going to be the billboard to display that information. You ain't got to say much. Just let the shirt speak. If you let the shirt speak, it'll do all the talking without you even opening your mouth. All praise to the Most High Yah. Yes. YHWH says Yahu before YHWH. Of course. And we're going to get into that. That's there intentionally for a reason. What I'll say to you is that those who are keeping up on the Patreon, you're already caught wind of this. We're going to get into that in a second. We're going to dive into that. All right, because that's been stirring things up. That's been stirring the pot up a little bit. All right. So with that being said, family, this is, again, a new year, whatever that means. Before we go into that, because we did already, Wednesday, we went into this, and we brought in a new year together here at Kingdom Harbinger Ministries studio. Me and y'all, we were chilling here on Wednesday evening going into Thursday. So with that nonsense, that secular holiday already gone, now we can embrace what new things that Yah has for 2026 for all of us that are here. And as we await for the beginning of the year in the spring, and Pesach, Passover, unleavened bread, and enjoying these feast days once again. Shout out to all those who kept Purim and Hanukkah. All praise to the Most High for that. Again, those are holidays that came out of our history and tradition and became a custom over time because of a phenomenal event that occurred in the history of Israel, where the nation was first saved from being destroyed via Mordecai and Esther, and then through the Maccabean revolt, preventing Israel from having a polluted land and a polluted temple. It was rededicated after a revolt and overthrow of the yoke of the Greeks. All praise to the Most High for the valor of those who fought in that battle and us overcoming. All praises to the Most High. And when I say us, I'm talking about us vicariously via our ancestors' work, who put the work in for that. All right. So shout out to y'all for keeping that. Again, we will work on the calendar for 2026. So you will be alerted when that is available. Right before we even release the calendar, we'll have the dates already set up, because I know those of y'all have reached out to me saying that you would like to know the dates. So y'all can put those days in advance. And if anybody needs a religious accommodation letter, you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. And we provide you one for the dates in which KHM keeps the feast days, or if you need a custom one for your personal feast days that you keep on those days, highlight us. We definitely can make an exception to accommodate you, because we want all of Israel to keep these feast days, regardless if you keep the KHM reconstructed ancient pre-exilic Israelite calendar or not. So we're here to help the community, serve the community in any way, shape, form possible that we can, is by serving the least of us. We serve Yeshua, the Messiah, and the Father, YHWH. But we're going to get into the oldest colloquial name for YHWH, the ancient Israelite patron deity. We're going to get into that in a second. Before we get into that, I just want to make sure that you're all aware. Make sure you're signing up for Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect. I have completed what y'all have requested. Remember, I have a playlist on this channel, and that playlist on this channel, we've been going over the history and the customs and the traditions of the feast days for years. All right. There's an actual playlist on this channel you can click in, deconstructing the holidays, and go into hours and hours of content in which we have broken down these so-called Sabbath feast days and holidays, the secular world's version of it. But now we have it in typed form in these papers, and now you can read, consume, and then now you can also share with family, friends, and associates so that they are on par with the information as it pertains to why we don't keep these holidays. I've made sure the language that I wrote in it is very objective, is non-aggressive. However, it does poses a question about participation in something that you do not understand the provenance of. And we definitely put that forward in these papers. So I'm going to show you what these things are, give you a little glimpse of the Patreon so you can see what I mean by Yahu before YHWH, and we're going to get into the details of that. All right. Also, I invited two people to this platform today so they can join the session, because they had an issue in regards to what I shared about that paper, which was interesting. And I anticipate that, as I said in the beginning of this live stream. So with that being said, let me go over these works which you showed them to you. And then also we're going to get into a quick snapshot of what's new on the Patreon. And then from there, we're going to do a call to action for you to join KHM. And then after that, we're going to get into this paper. And again, I just did an outline of the paper, right? The paper is much longer than its outline. Outline is only 3 pages. Paper is like 30 something pages. But I did an outline of it to kind of give you the gist of what it is that I'm saying in this paper, why it's important, what is its relevance to you guys, etc., and to start this conversation. All right. So let's get into it so you can see what is on the Patreon. You can now purchase this collection that has these 3 papers in it. You call them books if you want. However, I don't think they're lengthy enough to be officially books, but they are papers. And the Yahu before YHWH is actually an article, so it's actually shorter than a paper. But nonetheless, I want to take y'all through this real quick so you can see what we have. And if you're interested in it, you can patronize us on Patreon. And then after you get it, share with your family, friends, associates, etc., etc. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and share the screen so you can take a look at it. Let's do share screen. All right. So the first one, I'm gonna start from front to back. First one is Janus at the Threshold, New Year's Day, Roman ritual memory and the ethics of unexamined celebration. Now, we went over this on Wednesday on New Year's Eve, and we went into the contents of this paper. I shared it with y'all. I did update it a little bit, did some updating and some editing or redactions on it. So it is in its final form. So feel free if you need to understand why we don't engage in an objective fashion, right? Because again, I'm not using emotionally charged language. There's no aggressive wordplay in there, nothing like that. But we addressed it objectively, right? I make sure the language is objective, make sure the cadence is calm, and I just make sure that the overall tone is somewhat objective, but at the same time informal and direct, right? And this right here is going to break down for you why we don't engage in New Year's Eve and New Year's Day celebrations, right? Also, this is the one that I promised y'all. I said it was going to be done before the end of the week. Yahu was able to finish it. It's called Celebrating the Midwinter Rebirth, Christmas as a Liminal Ritual Between European Paganism and Christianity. This is a deep one. Now, I'm going to say this. Wait, let me move on to the next one. And then the last one is, I went over this with y'all already around Halloween, who's wearing who, how Halloween cosplays ancient rituals in modern forms, right? So this one right here is a brief research paper, and it's done that way, so it's easily to be consumed. There's really not much depth I wanted to go into with Halloween. Same thing with New Year's. The New Year's one also is kind of brief as well. However, this one here is double the pages. Actually, it's probably the same amount of pages of the Janus of the Threshold, who's wearing who combined. And the reason for that is because Christmas is the epitome of paganism. It's the epitome. It is the epitome of syncretism, of ancient pagan rites, customs, and practices intertwined and entangled with Christianity. Christmas predates Christianity. And in this paper, I say a couple of things that I think is noteworthy. Number one is, matter of fact, let me do this. I'm gonna go over the first chapter. I think that'll be cool if I go over that with y'all. Let me go over the first chapter with y'all. Here we go. Let me go over this with y'all, and then we're gonna transition. But I gotta read this. This is important. The illusion of an innocent holiday, right? And again, I don't know why everything is looks so blurry, but this might make it a little better. All right. The illusion of an innocent holiday. Christmas does not announce itself as controversial. It arrives wrapped in warmth, nostalgia, and emotional certainty. Lights glow, music repeats itself endlessly, and familiar rituals unfold almost automatically. For many, Christmas feels so natural that questioning it seems unnecessary and unwelcome. Yet this sense of inevitability is precisely what demands scrutiny. The most powerful rituals are not those that shock us, but those that no longer ask permission. Christmas today is widely framed as a celebration of Christ's birth, a family-centered cultural tradition, or a harmless secular holiday emptied of religious consequence. All three descriptions are partial. None are historically complete. The problem is not that Christmas has meaning. The problem is that its meaning has been simplified by repetition. Rituals, once normalized, become invisible. They survive not because they are understood, but because they are performed. And performance, especially when emotionally reinforced, creates continuity even when memory fades. All right, rituals do not disappear, they migrate. Across anthropology, religious studies, and cultural history, one principle is consistently observed. Rituals rarely die, they adapt. When belief systems change, rituals do not vanish with them. Instead, they relocate into new narratives, shed explicit theology, absorb new symbols, and continue operating beneath conscious awareness. Christmas is a textbook example of this process. Now, I'm going to say this real quick. When I engage atheists, this is the approach that I take. Because atheists are non-religious, but yet they still engage in rituals, rites, and customs, which is fascinating because they should do away with that and create their own from scratch. But if they continue to do stuff like this, then are you really atheist? Let's keep going. Its endurance cannot be explained by scripture alone. Its timing cannot be explained by historical memory. Its customs cannot be explained by theology and isolation. Something older is at work. Now, focus on this. Why Christmas feels right. You ever wonder why, when it comes this time of year, people say, get in the Christmas spirit, and you kind of feel the sense of nostalgia, that sense of anticipation. You feel like warmth and some kind of jovial, overwhelming, aura tries to attach or linger onto you, and people are so peppy and happy, and there's a reason for that. That's done by design. And that's how you know we're being placed under a spell. But let me refrain from using that type of language and be more objective. Christmas feels meaningful even to those who do not believe its theological claims. This is not accidental. It reveals that Christmas operates at a level deeper than belief. It engages the body, food, light, warmth, gathering, the senses, smell, sound, visual saturation, emotion, nostalgia, longing, generosity, grief, time, end of year, darkness, anticipation, and space. Homes transform into ritual environments. These are the classic mechanisms of liminal ritual, rites performed at thresholds, moments when normal time feels suspended and symbolic meaning intensifies. Christmas does not merely commemorate an event, it restructures experience. The longest night problem. Long before Christianity, European societies faced a recurring existential crisis every year, midwinter. The winter solstice marked the longest night, the weakest sun, agricultural dormancy, heightened mortality, and psychological vulnerability. This was not abstract symbolism, it was survival reality. Cultures depended not with philosophy alone, but with ritual action. Fire to resist darkness, greenery to assert life, feasting to reinforce cohesion, myth to promise return, and repetition to stabilize fear. These responses become encoded into ritual systems that were passed down, modified, and preserved. Christianity did not invent midwinter meaning, it inherited it. Christmas as a liminal system. Anthropologists use the term liminality to describe periods that exist in between death and rebirth. This is why Halloween feels the same way, because it is a liminal spatial system that encompasses ritual and rites within, because you're in that threshold, transitioning from one thing to another. This is done psychologically, spiritually, mentally, and then physically. See, people don't see this stuff. They don't think about it. But this stuff affects you at a much more deep subconscious level. And I'm here to expose that. Between old year and new, between darkness and light, between what was and what will be, Christmas occupies exactly this space. It stands between pagan solstice and Christian incarnation, between sacred theology and secular performance, between ancestral memory and modern consumerism, between belief and habit. This is why Christmas can survive theological decline. It is not sustained by doctrine alone. It is sustained by ritual structure. This is deep. I'm gonna stop right there. Let me stop right there. It's getting real deep. It's getting real deep. All right. With that being said, if you are interested in this paper, which I think is the way it's unpacked is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It touches you at a deeper level that you never encountered what Christmas is about in this way before. Okay, so celebrating the midwinter rebirth, Christmas as a liminal ritual between European paganism and Christianity. Janus at the threshold, New Year's Day, Roman ritual memory, and ethics of unexamined celebration. And who's wearing who, how Halloween cosplays ancient rituals in modern form. And you can check this out on the Patreon. We have a link to the collection. I'm going to drop it in the chat so that y'all have it and y'all can get it and support these works. Once you purchase it, feel free to share it with your family and your friends and make sure that they are also enlightened about this so-called harmless, innocent holiday, which it really is not. All right, so I'm going to drop that in. Drop that below for y'all so y'all can support it. All right. All right, so there's the link right there. That's how you can get access to all 3 papers so you can read, consume it, and share it. All right, get the information out there. All praise to the Most High. All right, and we're going to then show you what's new on the Patreon, and then from there, we're going to get started. All right, just give me 1 second. All right. Okay, so what is new on Patreon? Well, I'm going to share it with you. I just shared one thing with you, which is new on Patreon. And I want to point something out real quick when you get here. 2 things I want to point out real quick on the Patreon. All right, I'm going to share that. And then we're going to transition. All right, so first thing first, when you sign up for the Patreon, okay, there is a pinned post called Reference Guide. In this pinned post, I show you some content that is accessible via what tiers. Okay. So this way, if you want to know, well, what's on Patreon, what's so special about it, I give you some posts that will give you an idea of what you get. Depends on what tier you subscribe to that you can get immediate access to. All right. So make sure when you go to the Patreon for the first time, or let's say you've been Patreon for a while and you're not sure how to best reorient yourself, you can click on this post and take a look at all the things that I have on this post pinned here. Okay. All right. This is the reference guide. Now, coming to stuff that is new, we went into celebrating the midwinter rebirth Christmas as a liminal ritual between European paganism and Christianity. If you sign up for the Patreon or one of our paid subscription tiers, you will get access to this at no cost. Or if you're a free member or you're not a member at all, but just frequently visit it, you can also purchase this. It's $5. You can purchase it, you can get access to it, and then you can share it once you have it. Okay, so that's this. And then Yahu before YHWH, recovering the earliest named form of the ancient Israelite deity, right? This right here is a stellar paper. It is an article, so it's not that long. It's really highlighting the major points, giving some evidence for it, and leaving you with a very interesting conclusion. All right, and I'm gonna go over this. I'm gonna go over this with y'all in the overview paper that I put together. All right, Janus and at the Threshold, New Year's Day, Roman ritual memory, and the ethics of unexamined celebration. Again, you can get access to this if you're paid patron, or if you're just a free member, you can also purchase this as well if you're interested. And this is the book that I told you I would post, Encyclopedia of Christmas and New Year's Celebrations, a great encyclopedia that goes over the terms that's used during this holiday season, or the past holiday season, right? This one, I think I mentioned this before, but I'll pull it out here. For Matthew 1:16, does the Greek text or the Syriac text represent the most original reading? So I'm gonna say this. I am currently still working on a study that I've started since 2016. I think it was 16 or 15. Might have been 2015. I remember when I shared some of this in a lecture I did in 2015. So anyway, for a 10-year study that I've been working on, where I'm examining the Greek text of the New Testament and the Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest as a text for the New Testament. And what I'm doing is I'm doing textual comparisons, looking at textual variants, trying to establish what the Vorlage is, which is the original text, right? And what I'm showing you between the Nestle Alan 28 and the Old Syriac Sinaiticus text, I'm trying to show you which one has the preferred reading when we're looking at various passages and why, and what that methodology of analysis is, and why I take the approach that I do when I say that Greek primacy is erroneous. And Greek primacy, meaning that the Greek text is the primary text and no other text that's not Greek does not matter. That is a problem. All right. That presents a difficulty in handling the New Testament. Now, remember, if Jesus was born in Israel and he grew up a Jew, he was born a Jew, raised a Jew, grew up as a Jew. He went to synagogue, as was his custom that we see in the text. He would have spoken colloquial Aramaic. He would have understood liturgical Hebrew in the synagogue. And he would have known some Greek to communicate with foreigners or non-ethnic Israelites. However, if he is speaking to his own people, he is speaking to them in Aramaic. If he is speaking to the Pharisees, he's speaking with a blend of Hebrew and Aramaic. Now, when he interfaces these ethnic Gentiles, he is probably speaking some broken Greek, or when he's speaking to the Roman soldiers, Pontius Pilate, whoever, he is probably speaking some Greek, right? And they understand some Greek. It was a bridge language, okay? I have some bridge languages with people that I speak to as well. And I don't know, I'm not fluent in it, but I know enough of it to hold a conversation. Now, obviously, some of that is hyperbolic because the scribes or the authors who are writing this is probably enhancing and polishing the actual dialogue and engagement. However, if we want the real value from his teachings, we have to look at the Greek text against the Aramaic text. All right. The best representation of Aramaic text that we have that was not purposely written to blend with and conform to the Greek text would be the Old Syriac Sinaiticus. If we want to maintain those idioms, right, those colloquialisms, those Aramaisms, all the thing that gives value to a lot of the words that he would have spoken in his teachings, which is the primary thing that's going to guide us back to the Father, right? To understand his midrash and how he is giving these explanatory expressions, right? And how he's espousing on the law, magnifying and make it righteous before the Most High and before the people. How you can understand what his purpose is. You have to be able to view a lot of these things through the lens of the Syriac text, which maintains the Aramaic colloquialisms of his time. So I'm doing a very, very deep study and comparing both of these manuscripts and looking to see which has a preferred reading. Now, that does not mean that the Syriac has a preferred reading in every case, because it does not. I'm going to say that. However, in enough cases, it does, and it should be preferred over the Greek text. So when this study comes out, which is very exhaustive, now mind you, it's not overtly exhaustive, right? Because I'm limited to just the book of Matthew, which is my preferred book of the New Testament. So I'm not going to do it for every book, because that would be a lot of work. I'm just focused on a Matthew because I put 10 years in already on it. I have a good grasp on analyzing this, and I'm trying to put the finishing touches on it so I can release it this year. Now, again, this is not for novice, beginners, maybe intermediate and more intermediate to advanced, and maybe people who are experts, right? So I was submitted to get it peer reviewed at some point. But you have to be at least at an intermediate level to understand what it is I'm doing. However, what I'm going to do is provide a reader's guide. The reader's guide simplifies it for a general audience, so it can help walk you through each chapter, what my attempts are, and try to somewhat break it down in more simpler terms so that you can digest it and understand it. But again, this is going to be extremely, extremely heavy when we go into it. Very heavy. But what I've shown here, and I pulled out Matthew 1 and chapter 1, verse 16, because this is a controversial passage. This one in the Greek text proves a virgin birth. If you go into the language of the Greek, it proves a virgin birth. It gives the agency of bringing forth Yeshua by means of Marias or Mary. Whereas in the Syriac text, the agent for begetting Yeshua is who? Is Yosef. So what I did was I said, okay, let me put these two side by side. Let me analyze it. And what I realized in my conclusion, again, I have tons of reasons. I have over maybe 40 books that I'm using in textual criticism, books dealing with the Greek text, the NA28, the OSS, the Curetonian Gospels, all of that, right? And another good book called At One Remove, which is a great book. There's a bunch of essays that talk about this stuff on how the earliest text of the New Testament has been preserved before we get to the codices that's preserved today, right? That's fully extant, right? And what I was able to show was these two things. I'm going to show you 5 and 6. 5 is the evaluation. Was the Greek NA28 reading is clearly shaped to protect virginal conception language, whereas the Syriac preserves a legal paternity genealogy logic consistent with ancient Near Eastern descent reckoning and Matthew's broader Davidic concern. That's very important. You cannot erase the motif in the book of Yahu as it pertains to Yeshua coming from the seed of David or Dawood. That gives him his relevance. And once you sever that, You have to find some other way to circumvent that. And when you say, hey, it's through Mary, whoa, then how come everything else that we see in that genealogical pattern of begetting does not include the begetting through the woman, but everything else shows the begetting through the father? If you skip or cut over Joseph and say, well, he is the father through adoption, which is interesting, right? He is the father through adoption. He is the legal father of Jesus, not the biological father of Jesus. The problem you're going to have is you got to show us in that Davidic line where that was ever the case, because that was never the case in order to authenticate someone able to sit on the throne of David. But anyway, so the verdict is, and I highlighted the last point, the Greek preferred for doctrinally stabilized text. If you have a particular worldview of the New Testament by means of the Greek text, and you see in Matthew chapter 1 and verse 16 about the virgin birth, and then you see the doctrine that surrounds that develops later over time, you will understand that the Greek text was set up in a way to preserve that, even though it is the lengthier reading. It does not follow brevior lectio, which is the briefest reading. So typically in textual criticism, in most cases, when you see something that has the briefest reading or rendering, it is the preferred one, because scribes will rarely erase a text, shorten a text, because that's sacrilegious. But they will add to the text, or they'll put marginal notes and they'll find their way into the text, as we see in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 7. So I say that to say, when we look at the OSS, it preserves an earlier genealogical logic suppressed in later Greek transmission. Why? Because if we look at the form that's preserved in the Syriac, it maintains that Avraham all the way down to Yeshua, and the father beginning the son. Father, it does not break that chain. And that would have been the way it was understood by Aramaic speaking colloquialists at that time. They would have not understood Jesus coming from a virgin birth, whereas his mother has never known a man. But the Greek text definitely does support that. But when you get into the Syriac text, now you have a different problem, because either this is an original Syriac text that goes back to the 1st century, as Arthur Vubis has said, or has it been, or the way it's been analyzed recently by Sebastian P. Brock and others, is that it represents a Greek text, sort of like the LXX or the Septuagint. Well, regardless of either it's an original Syriac or a Greek text, and again, do my analysis, I'm going to show you the parts that is originally Syriac and the parts that maybe would have came from or translated from some Greek. I go into all of that in this test, right? But the key thing that I'm trying to express in here is that the Greek text differs over time, diverges over time away from the Semitic speakers, those who were Jews, those who would have looked at the Tanakh to validate Yeshua. They would have never seen anything that showed a precedent of a virgin birth, a woman not knowing a man, as a way to validate the existence or the coming of the Messiah. So this is why you cannot hold to Greek primacy. You must take it and compare it with other texts and see which holds the better reading. And in all cases, the Greek does not hold the better reading. And from my perspective, in Matthew chapter 1 and verse 16, the most original Semitic genealogical logic that would have been preserved in Matthew chapter 1 and verse 16 would be from the old Syriac Sinaiticus Palma says. But either way, I'm just giving you a snippet, and I'll do a couple more entries like this before I get into the fully detailed paper of this. Like, this paper is like maybe 200 pages, man, because I go in depth with all of this. It's a heavy paper. But my point is, when I say stuff on here, trust and believe that there's a lot of logic behind it, years of research behind it. And these years of research are not my own peer review of my own work that I put out, but I go to SBL, I go to ASOR, I go to all these other societies, I go to their conferences, and I get them to look over my work. I ask them questions, and I engage. On academic.edu, I engage other academics as well, and other forums that I'm part of, because I'm part of these societies. I engage academics. I read the papers on this stuff. Trust me, this is coming from over a decade worth of research and study, right? But this is a monumental work. It's taking me years. I'm still not finished with it. I'm hoping to be finished with it, hopefully by second quarter of this year. We'll see. And then I'm definitely going to take it to one of the conferences to get it peer reviewed and have conversations around it. But yeah, I'm just giving you a sample here. That's why that exists there in the Patreon. All right. So that's all for really the entries of the Patreon. Again, you can support R&D such as this, and those who are the patrons support R&D such as this. So shout out to all my patrons in the building, because without your help, none of this stuff could be possible. All right. None of it could be possible. All right. So I appreciate your support. And again, I'm not here to persuade you what to believe. If you subscribe to the Greek text and you feel the Greek text fits more doctrinally with your position and is more consistent with the rest of the Greek text, as we mentioned in Matthew chapter 1, verse 16, more power to you. All I'm trying to show you is that you are relying on what's called Greek primacy. And that is erroneous when we look at the textual criticism 101s. All right. You're supposed to prefer the most difficult reading or the briefest reading in order for you to translate which is holding the best weight of the preponderance of the evidence for this translation. So it requires an interpretation layer before you get to the translation layer. And what I'm going to do is walk you through that process when you read that work. Now, again, I'm going to give you the reader's guide. It's going to simplify the actual work itself, but I want everybody to be accustomed with the reader's guide so they can access the information that's in that work. And you can understand why I'm making the argument that I make. I'm not doing this purely from out of the blue because I got some wild doctrine. Trust me. Like I'm about to share with y'all in a second, Yahu before YHWH, we're going to get into some information. I'm going to show it to you. Now, again, I've mentioned this subject on the channel before, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth for you, right? And then from there, we'll do a Q&A, open the panel up, and all that fun stuff. All right. So with that being said, again, please support the Patreon, get access to these posts, and also you are contributing to the R&D that will enable me to finish these projects and many more that I have lined up for this year. All right. Okay. All right. Also, KHM, we're looking for more KHM members. Help us to build the community in your immediate community. Help us to set up Goshens. Help us to set up refuge cities. Help us to push the covenant social reconstruction model, which you can read what that model is on the Patreon. This is our goal for 2026. We're also doing more intense networking. We're going to begin our meeting at the end of this month. We'll have our KHF meetings. It'll be an introduction meeting on a Saturday, I think last Saturday of January, and then it should be bi-weekly after that. So make sure you're signed up. Make sure all your information is up to date. If you want to join us, putting your hand to the plow to do the work in the community, sign up for the Patreon. That information is in the description below. If you want more information on the Patreon, on KHM, not the Patreon, you can definitely watch the videos that's in the description below. We have an orientation video, we have a benefits video, and then we have the chapter launch playlist, right? You can go through those things to absorb all this information about what KHM is, how it can benefit you, your family, your immediate community, and how we're going to terraform these cities that we have chapters in, so that way they can house Goshens, refuge cities, they can have birthing centers, they can have school and education, higher education institutes, etc. That is the goal. That is what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that there's fair wages in your community and advocate for you if there's not with your employer. We're also going to make sure that there are refuge areas so that you can seek solace if you're being chased and killed by gang violence, domestic abuse, or let's say white supremacist groups, right? These are the things that we're attempting to establish so we can secure and protect our community. We're going to make sure that there are sabbaticals in your city so that the Sabbath is respected and people rest on that day. We're going to make sure that there is a public rubric index that can be publicly accessed with data from the success of these implementations, right? We're going to keep certain things anonymous, but for the most part, anybody can access this database to see if it's succeeding or failing. And then you have many other contingencies in place in the event that other existential means attempt to undermine, infiltrate, and remove this in our site today. The goal of it is true nation building. We want to educate people on what real nation building is according to Torah principles, and that is what the CSRM provides. All right. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. We have the paper over at Patreon, but if you become a member, we'll definitely send it to you. If you're a member and you did not get a copy of the CSRM, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We'll make sure that you have it. And I want to say welcome to all the new members that sign up for KHM recently. We appreciate your support. Again, we'll have an introductory meeting for 2026 at the last Saturday of this month. And I look forward to meeting y'all, and our current members look forward to meeting you guys as well. All right. All praise to the Most High. All right. I want to give a special shout out to the brother Randall Hall and the brother Brian Tompkins. Thank you for your support. I appreciate y'all, and we appreciate y'all. And thank you for investing in KHM and helping us keep this show on the air, as well as everybody in the chat that is participating right now. All praises to the Most High. Okay. All right, now let's get started, man. Let me give a couple of shout outs first in the chat. Let's get started, go over some of this outlines of this paper. And then from there, we're going to try to do some Q&A, open a panel, and then we're going to get in from there and close out the show. All right, so give a couple of shout out to DJ Light in the building. Shalom. Jaslyn Berry. Shalom. Panther De Noir. Shalom. Sayo 200. Shalom. Truthmore. Shalom. Yasha Yahawa. Shalom. Solomon Israel. Shalom. User HU1YU5XM9I. Shalom. Sister Love in the building. Shalom. Daniel Yaziah. Shalom. Ben Cole. Shalom. Feed the Spirit. Shalom. Jasmine. Is that Jasmine Ross? Excuse me if I'm messing up. Jasmine Ross, E. Ross. Shalom. Ice You Cold in the building. Shalom. Mr. Shemzi. Shalom. Get Wise. Shalom. Gavin Miller. Shalom. Ara 29. Shalom. Let me see. Yahosef Ben Yisrael. Shalom. Heart on Yah. Shalom. Yashar Napah. Shalom. Brother Ah. Shalom. I'll go back and see what some of y'all are sharing. Follow the law. Shalom. Let's see. Yan B5R. Shalom. Yasun. Shalom. One servant in the building. Shalom King. Preach Genesis mode in the building. Shalom. Let me see. Oh, D. Glenn Royal. That's my Hebrew OG. Hebrew Zakin over there. Shalom. Nylante. Shalom. They not like us. 82. Shalom. Let me see who else we have in the building. B.A. Rebel Worker in the building. Shalom, B.A. What's going on, King? Let's see who else we got. Mr. Jeshua 144. Shalom. Double the Hebrew. Shalom. Mukael. Shalom. Daywalker 7. Shalom. 19 Mac. Shalom in the building. Ashaya, Yasharala, Shalom, sis, Shalom, Yash Chosen, Shalom, Mr. ACS 23, Shalom, Germ 330, Shalom. Where y'all coming from? Tay G9, do Shalom, Crazy Flow 1K, Shalom, Raphael the Moore, Shalom, Raphael in the building, Lidland. Let's get it. Where did all these people, where did all y'all come from? We was at 100, and so I started talking about some stuff, and every time I start talking about some stuff, y'all just drop. And y'all just leave, and y'all exit, what's that, stage left, and y'all gone. I don't know why. I'm not intending to stir the pot. I just want to make y'all think critically. That's all. Get rid of the dogma. Oh, let me give this plug, by the way. This right here is Poppy Watermelon Prebiotic Soda. You maybe see me drink some of this in some of the videos, but really good. I quit soda years ago, but then I got into this maybe 4 years ago when I found out that they had an organic natural soda that has prebiotics in it and fiber. Awesome. Okay. All right. Otto Hibbler, Shalom in the building. We got UK in the building, Mr. Shemzi. All right. So let's get it, man. We had like almost 100 people, and some of y'all dropped out. I understand. Some of y'all, may not be ready for this. It's all good. I love you anyway. All right. Shout out to let's see who else is here. Let me see who else is here. Did I get everybody? Yeah, I got everybody. Okay. All right, y'all. Let's get into this, right? Oh, shout out to Sister Shan in the building. What's going on, sis? Oh man, y'all, you and BA gonna harass me to death about that. All right, I got you. Hey, no, let me say this. I told y'all. Listen, I don't know if y'all been following, but let me show y'all. We got the paper on deck. I got a paper. I just didn't do the presentation yet, but I'm gonna show you this. I got the paper on deck. Let me show it to y'all. Let me bring it out real quick. Y'all interested about the serpent, right? Okay, gotcha. Here it is. Let me show this to y'all. See this? Yeah, this is some heavy stuff. I'm going to show you when you misinterpret what and who the Nachash was and its seed, its Zerah, it'll lead you to what we call the weaponization of biotheology and modern extremist thought, which means a lot of white supremacist groups and Christian identity groups that continue to support white supremacy, violence against our people, all goes back to them misinterpreting and not understanding who the serpent was, what it was, how it got in the garden, and its seed. And what does it mean, its seed and the woman's Zera'ah? The woman's Zera'ah, her seed and his seed. What does that mean? So in this paper, I go into that in detail because I realized that a lot of people say, oh, why y'all keep dealing with the Bible and the Hebrew, Greek, and all that stuff? What does that have to do with 2025? I tell you, those far right groups that be out here, and a lot of them are police officers on the cover, and a lot of them out here protesting against our community, engaging in violence, doing all matters to promote various things in our community. I'm not going to give any details about that. A lot of that stems back to the misinterpretation of the Nakash in the garden. So we unravel that, we get into that, and we're not playing games with that. So if BA and Sister Shanti is in the building, which I see they are, and y'all are interested, hit me up at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Let me put this in your hands. Take a look at it. However, there is an upcoming lecture that I'm doing. It's going to draw from this, but also from other sources as well. And I'm going to do that this year. I was supposed to finish it last year. It was just a lot going on, but I'm definitely going to do it this year because I think that is a monumental lecture that needs to be had. I'm going to show you the relevance of the Bible and what we call the weaponization of biotheology. Well, what is biotheology? Biotheology is the religious belief that the Bible tells you about certain bloodlines that is in the scripture that is either a set apart holy bloodline or a bloodline that is not holy and that needs to be extinguished. So people weaponize this knowledge, and it's dated knowledge. This is back in maybe the 16, 17, 1800s, and then it spurs the 1900s, 2000s. But it drives modern extremist thoughts, right? It's an egregore that was formulated because they misinterpreted the text, and now they're using that as a means to destroy our community. A lot of people died behind. A lot of white supremacist groups, the Ku Klux Klan is one of them, was inspired by this serpent seed doctrine. A lot of people died. Our ancestors were hung, lynched, beaten, and so forth because of this wrongful theology. So when you read this, you're going to understand how relevant this knowledge is for 2026. I keep saying 2025. That's going 2026. So if y'all are interested, email me and I'll definitely share it with y'all. Let me know what your thoughts on it. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me jump up out of here. Okay. Let's continue on with the show. All right. Let me see. Okay, no doubt, sis. No doubt. All right. Let me see. Anything in here? Shasu people who were said to have used YHWH before Israelites existed and are apparently Midianites too. That's correct. This lines up with Jethro's knowledge in the book of Devarim. Correct. I agree with you, brother. I agree. Mr. Shemzi on point as always. Let me see. Brother Ash, shalom, brother. If you have time today, can you offer some insights if you have a stance on the validity, authorship, and addressee of the pseudo-Clementine homilies? I'll see. Definitely, I'll see. Otherwise, brother, we can continue this conversation offline. Just email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I'll give you some sources on that. And you can take a look at that. All right? Okay. All praise to the Most High, man. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. Why are you looking at my notes, bro? Stop looking at my notes, man. How you cheat off the teacher? I'm a fall back. No comment. I'm gonna let you figure that out. Hey, yo, shout out to Priest Hakan in the building. Shalom. Elder D. Royal, D. Glenn Royal in the building. Shalom. That's my Hebrew elder right there. Let me see. Yashar, yep. Okay. Now, the curse of Yechaniah, I'm asking to understand, not to challenge you, no problem. I've addressed that before in the past. But B, I'm going to tell you to hold that because I definitely want to get into this Yahu before YHWH. And then I'll start taking questions if we have the time. Okay. All right. Is Uriah the Hittite literally a Hittite or Israelite? Trying to understand why he has a theophoric name and Israelite wife. Excellent question, Daywalker. Excellent question. See, we attract great minds in here. They don't ask these rudimentary, elementary questions, right? We ask higher level questions in here because these are critical thinkers, right? All praises. All right. Let me see. Yes, I agree. Correct, because that's what a lot of scholars attributed to, those first century Jewish scholars. Jewish Christians. I said Jewish scholars, Jewish Christians. All right. Shout out to Nino Brown in the building. Shalom. What's going on? All right, let's get started, man. Love when you ask questions. Love addressing the questions, man. All praise to the Most High. All right. So let's get into this. This is going to be somewhat controversial, but it shouldn't. It should not be, right? And I don't want to spill the beans on the paper that I put a lot of time and effort into putting together. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of that paper. That paper is like 30 pages or something like that. This paper is only 3 pages, right? So it's 27 pages side of the actual paper. If you want to read it, go to the Patreon and you can get it. And that way you can support the R&D research and development that we do on this channel and that we do at KHM and that I do on the Patreon page. But I want to show you something, all right? And again, this is why you cannot be exclusive to just the immaterial culture of Israel and think you understand Israel. When I say immaterial, I'm talking about things that are written. I'm talking about words, thoughts, and ideas that are conveyed that you can't hold, okay? You have to take that and marry it with the material culture, items that can be held, touched, handled. We have to have a blend of both to understand the full corpus of work that Yah has revealed to his people. Okay. So this question has come up to me recently, right? Within the past couple of weeks, I had several people ask me about this. And then on Priest Sakah, who was just here from Genesis, I was asked this on his university, and I gave a little bit of information on that. I didn't want to spill too much because I want people to read. Listen to me. I know a lot of people say, oh, Divine, you need to make more videos. And I say, wait, brother, listen, I can make 1 million videos, but I want y'all to read. This is why when you go to my Patreon, I have tons of books, tons of articles. I need y'all to read more. I know some of y'all read. Sometimes it may be difficult, it may be a lot. You'll be busy. I understand I'm busy too, but I try to find at least 30 minutes to an hour every day, even if it's broken up in 15, or 30, whatever, to get through a book, to read an article, read a paper, read something. Yes, reading scripture goes along with that, right? But reading additional information to help enhance my understanding of scripture, that is priceless. So when I put together these papers, this is based on my research. You asking me, well, what do you think about this? I can't cover everything in a Freestyle Friday. So I put them in a paper, sometimes a monograph if it's lengthy, so that you can take time to read it in chunks. And I try to make it's not overtly technical, even though there's some technical aspects of it, because you have to understand the mechanics to really understand what I'm saying. But I try to not make it in a way where it's fully foreign that you can't just pick it up and read it. Just take your time and go through it. And a lot of the research papers are very short purposely, so it's easily digestible. But once you read that and you want more, you got to go to the expanded and then to the monograph, which is going to be over 150 pages, and read that, because that's going to give you a wealth of knowledge on the subject matter that I've accrued, the resources that I use, and the methodology that I employ, right? So I want y'all to read, right? Read. Reading is fundamental. It's important, right? Yes, you'll read the scripture, but a lot of times you're not employing the right methodology to interpret scripture because you don't have background information on certain things. Now, again, I'm not telling you to be the expert. I'm not an expert myself, and I never said I'm an expert, right? But I know enough to be functional to make sure that when I study, that little bit of time that I have to study, sometimes it's 15 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on what's going on in my life, because my life is extremely busy. But whenever I put time to study, I have the proper methodology. And when you sign up for the $50 tier on Patreon, you get to join our class, the KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes. And we show you how to properly study the text with 10 minutes to an hour worth of time that you may have, how to approach it, how to get the most out of it. All right. He said, I read so much, I'll be missing live streams. Yo, you crazy. All right, let's get to this, man. Let's get to this work. So what I'm going to do is show you, it's a paper that I put together that just gives you an overview of the actual paper itself. It's only 3 pages. We won't go into this. And I want to strike up this conversation. All right, we're already an hour in, so let me jump into it and waste no more time. Oh, did I close it out? I definitely did close it out. All right, let me see if I can reopen it. Hold on one second. And let's get to it. Right. Let me make this, let me increase the font so it's easier to read. All right, so we're going to get into this, right? We're going to get into this. Don't get mad. Get glad. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. All right. So the article that I put together, I guess it's not really a paper. It's kind of shorter than a paper, so I call it an article. The article that I put together is called Yahu before YHWH, right? Now, matter of fact, I don't know if I should bring that up. Let me bring it up. Let me bring it up a little bit so y'all can see that too. All right. I'm going to go over this portion with y'all real quick. All right. Yahu before YHWH. This is the actual paper itself. Recovering the earliest attested name form of the Israelite deity through Hebrew onomastics, epigraphy, and Northwest Semitic philology. Right. The abstract. The pronunciation historical form of the Israelite divine name has long been dominated by reconstructions derived from later literary, theological, and reception historical trajectories centered on the Tetragrammaton, YHWH. This study argues that such approaches, while philologically sophisticated, routinely privilege late canonical orthography over earlier socially embedded data. By recentering the analysis on Hebrew onomastics, epigraphic attestations, and orthographic development, including matres lectiones, and comparative Northwest Semitic naming practices, this paper advances the thesis that the earliest recoverable name form of the Israelite deity is the trigrammatic YHWH, best vocalized as Yahu. The Tetragrammaton, YHWH, is best understood as a secondary literary stabilization and morphological expansion of this older, socially operative name form. This argument does not deny the antiquity or authority of YHWH. Keep that in mind as a canonical spelling, but redefines the evidentiary hierarchy by which originality is assessed, privileging epigraphic and onomastic data over later theological abstraction. You know, say, Devon, what the hell does all that mean? What I'm saying to you is, in order for me to understand the colloquial name of the ancient Israelite patron deity of Israel, ancient Israelite patron deity, I'll just say patron deity, right? I had to look at 2 approaches. I could either take the material approach or the immaterial approach. The material approach is looking at things that you see me mention there. I'm looking at Hebrew onomastics, which is the study of names, right? Name forms, name types, epigraphic attestations, things that are written on pottery shards called ostraca, or incised in walls or in tunnels like the Hezekiah tunnel inscription, etc. And then I look at the orthography, how these things are written, why are they written, what is a theonym, what is a theophoric name, and things like that. So I examine things in the material culture, and I take an approach from the material culture. I do not let the immaterial culture or the text dictate how the name came to be. What the text does is the text authenticates this approach. Now, I said this before in the past. Familial cults within the Israelite community has preserved the vocalized name of the deity that was common amongst the laymen, Yahu, right? Or Yahu, right? Whereas YHWH was more administrative, monarchical, and things that was used diplomatically in which other nations understood the deity by. It is a political name that is derived from the culture in times past. However, the actual attribution of Yahu as a suffix or prefix within a theonym, which is theos. Theo means that it comes from theos, which means a god, and nim means a name or a theophoric name. We have to understand that they've preserved it amongst the Yahwists that go way back to the late Bronze Age period. And that's where we get these Amarna West and Soleb Temple attestations in epigraphic form, okay, of the name. Twice. There's two witnesses from right there. And then we go into Hebrew onomastics and we observe Yahweh's names in Judea and the use of those names. And then we also find it used by other cultures. I'm going to get into that. What I'm saying is most people's approach to the divine name simply starts or begins and ends in the immaterial text, excuse me. They do not consider the material culture. Here we blend the two to try and understand or develop a synopsis on how this came to be, why you see what you see, and what is the relevance behind it. All right. You're getting there, Elder, but I go more into that in the paper. So I'm not, again, this paper here, I'm not going to read it for y'all because I want y'all to support my research, right? So you can go to the Patreon and read it. Email me, Elder, at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. I definitely want you to take a look at this and give me your thoughts on it. But again, this is one perspective. I'm not speaking in absolute terms. This is just my research and how I came about with this conclusion. Okay. So those who understand the language will know exactly what the Elder D. Glenn Royal has said and what's on the screen, but I'm gonna refrain from that. Because he's a cheat code. We're not gonna deal with the cheat codes. All right. What was that hard on y'all? Eliezer ben Yehuda. What role did this guy play in the way we understand ancient Hebrew language? Yeah. So this is how you get the modern Hebrew. That has nothing to do with what I'm about to share with you. That's a completely isolated situation. That has to do with the modern Hebrew, right? Which is based off of the classical Hebrew, but has some more colloquial conventions so that it can be a modern colloquial language, an everyday speech language, as opposed to something that's written for literature. All right. So that's a whole nother conversation, but that has nothing to do with what I'm about to share with you here. Right. But let me get into the outline and walk you through in a very general terms of how I came to this conclusion. If you read this, there's some technical stuff in here, especially in dependency. So I don't want to unpack it, but I will give you a nice overview that goes over and highlights the main points from this paper. But I need y'all to read this paper. Go to the Patreon, support it. Look at the post for Yahu before YHWH and support this, and you'll see what I'm talking about, right? Now, let's go over the overview, right? Why the earliest name of the God of Israel may not be the one you think. So I'm going to go over this with y'all. I'm going to elucidate on some of it. And if y'all have questions, let me know. Now, I know there were some people that were supposed to join this live that wanted to challenge me on this. I don't see them there. Shout out to Double T, the Hebrew in the building. Shalom, King. I don't see them. B1G Cotton. Shalom. They're not here. However, I'm sure there's some people, there's almost 110 people in here. I'm sure there's some people in there that will disagree with this. And I'm okay with that. That is how we sharpen swords, right? Iron sharpens iron. And what I'm going to do after I go over this is put a link that if you're interested in having a conversation with me, let's say you say it's Ahaya. Let's say you say it's Yahweh. Let's say you say it's something along those lines, or even Yahweh, right? If you hold those positions, I'll share the link. We can have a quick dialogue, and then I will continue to expound and explicate why I hold said position in contradiction to what you are going to propose to me or espouse to me. All right. So remember, I took a lot of time to go through this. This is not some random thing that I just pulled off the internet. This is something that requires studying a variety of different books, looking into the subject matter, reading articles and papers on this, and interfacing with people who have done this work prior to me. This is why I'm signed up for SBL, their literature, because they go over topics like this. Matter of fact, let me show you some of what I'm talking about, and then we're going to get started. I just randomly pulled this section out. But this is like my 2022 edition. I just pulled a few of them out. This is the Journal of Biblical Literature from SBL. Some topics in here, as you can see. Well, yeah. So this one goes into the literary historical memory of Sargon of Akkad and Assyria as the background from Nimrod in Genesis chapter 10, verses 8 to 12, the Tabernacle Manual, Exodus 25:1 to 31:18, in light of the cuneiform procedural genre, kingship and covenant, reconsidering the oath of David and Jonathan, mourning for Tammuz, prophecy and projection in Ezekiel 8:14, 4Q Paleo Exodus M, and the Gerizim composition, the relationship between 3 Maccabees and the Vetus Latina of Esther. I mean, R.H. Charles and Modern Biblical Studies. You know, R.H. Charles was responsible for the translation of the Book of Enoch. Some of y'all got that you're reading the Blood Plague, Exodus 7, chapter 7, verses 14 to 25, the hermeneutics of a composite text, writing as a source of ritual authority, the high priest's body as a priestly text in the tabernacle building story, humor in the midst of tragedy, the comic vision of 1 Samuel chapter 4 to 6, sex scandal and the politicus of David's throne, Isaiah 39 and the motif of human trust in 1st Isaiah, etc., etc. This is Daniel and the Didakai, text correcting kere, scribal errors, and textual variants in medieval Hebrew Bible manuscripts. I mean, there's tons of essays that are in this literature. I have them. I think I started getting them in 2020. So I have 2020, 2021, 2020. No, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. And I have to renew my subscription to get 2026. So I have 6-7 volumes of these. And trust me, when it comes to looking for people who are writing current consensus on the subject matter, you're going to find it in SBL. You're going to find it in Brill Publishing. You're going to find it in Oxford and Cambridge Publishing, and their books and articles and volumes and journals that they put out. You have to do extensive reading on this stuff. Like, this is not like for the weak. This is not for like beginners. And again, I'm not even an expert in any of this, but I do enough reading. I'm functional enough to understand what the claims are, what the argument is, and what the methodology that proves it. So I want to encourage y'all, if you don't have a subscription to SBL, get a subscription to SBL, join the society, and get the Journal of Biblical Literature so you can read a lot of the current consensus work on various subject matters as it pertains to scripture, right? So let's get back to this. Now, introduction. Why names matter in ancient religions, right? In the ancient world, names were not labels. They were identities. To know the name of a deity was to know something essential about its origin, authority, and relationship to its people. For the God of ancient Israel, that name was traditionally been represented by 4 Hebrew letters, Yod, He, Vav, He. Most people encounter this name as the Lord in English Bibles, or hear scholars reconstruct it as Yahweh, right? But what if the earliest recoverable name of Israel's God was not Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh at all? This monograph, Yahu before Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, argues that when we move beyond later theology and focus on archaeology, inscriptions, and ancient naming practices, a different and earlier name form emerges, Yahu. Now I'm going to say this before we get into this. There are scholars out there that disagree with my position because they've written on it and I've spoken to them. So I understand that there is a completely different perspective on what I'm sharing. However, there are scholars that support this perspective. right? So this is something that I'm going to be honest about is not definitive. I never say it's definitive, right? But it's something that is written to pique your critical thinking juices to see that there's a logic behind why we see these theonyms and theophoric names in scripture that then follow usage in the exilic and post-exilic period. You'll see exactly what I mean by that, right? I'll demonstrate that another time. Let's continue reading, right? So the problem with how the divine name is usually studied. Most discussions of the divine name begin with the Bible and work outward. Scholars ask, how do we pronounce YHWH? Does it come from the verb to be, which would be the root verb, right? The triconsonantal root, or the shoresh? What does Exodus mean when God says, I am who I am? These are important questions, but they start too late. The Hebrew Bible, as we have it, is a literary product, edited and preserved by scribes over centuries. It reflects theology, not everyday speech. Ancient people, however, encountered their God not first in books, but in names, oaths, seals, letters, and prayers and songs. I forgot to put songs. I got to add songs. The earliest portions of the Tanakh, I'm going to line them out for you. Blessings, prayers, songs, legal code. These four things are going to be the earliest portions of your text. The narrative comes later. The narrative is fully redacted and complete in the post-exilic period. However, a lot of the blessings, such as Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 to 26, where it goes into Aaron's blessing, we find that in the Ketef Hinnom silver scrolls, and that goes back to circa 600 BCE. Blessings, legal codes. What do you mean by the legal codes? Well, when we look at the Yavne Yam Astraka, it has a dispute between an employee and his employer that is brought before a governor or a high official, and that his cloak was taken from him because he did not meet a quota and kept overnight. And because he suffered overnight, he went to make an appeal because what was done to him was illicit, was prohibited. Well, that is an inherent legal code that was already in existence in Israel before we have the written text. The text in the form we have today was not alive in Iron Age 1, was not alive in the Bronze Age period. These things are written down later because of the migration, the movements, and then Israel during the administrative period or losing stuff. Also, administrative records about kings, their ascension, descension, about certain battles and wars. These things are going to also predate the final form of the narrative. This is very important to understand, right? I cannot stress this enough. I may have to do a lecture on this so you can understand this, but this is very important. So what do I mean by this? The name that I'm about to show y'all, what we see as YHWH, I told y'all, it is part of the immaterial culture, and it was used politically and diplomatically, okay? But amongst the common people who are not in that upper echelon of society, they use this as a vocalized colloquial way of saying the deity's name. Now, I say that also because there's an even extreme form of this, which we see in Exodus 15 and Psalm 68, which is just a Yah. That's it, which is a even shortened version. However, in the Psalms and in the Song of the Sea is where these two things are preserved, one by David and one by Moshe. They preserve the short name outside of the narrative. The narrative has the full name, which you call the plene writing. And then you have the defective writing or the defective form where it reduces some of the consonants, right? It maintains the vocalization, but it reduces some of the consonants. Whereas the plene is the full spelling of a word. But then you also have these shorthand versions of the word and these contracted forms of the word of the name. But this here for a reason. Remember, what we see in the text is a conjugated verb that's then been used as a proper name or a proper noun. What I'm arguing is here, this is not that. Because if you remove the yod, you don't have a proper verb. With Yahu, there's no proper verb. Just like with Yah, if you remove the yod, you don't have a verb root. But if you move yod from yod he vav he, you do have. Some say it's hey yod he vav he. They could come from either two roots. There's scholars that say it could come from either two. The consensus now I think is hey yod he, but some hold to hey vav he, right? But if you remove the yod from yod hey wav, you don't have a root, a verbal root, which means it's a vocalized form from familial cults in regards to name. What do I mean by a familial cult? That means tribes and families have maintained the name of their deity in proper names, which we call a theonym or theophoric name. This we see in epigraphic texts. This we see in Hebrew onomastics and names. This we see elsewhere by other cultures outside of Israel maintaining this. Then we look at the Elephantine Papyri. You see this, the Samaritan Astrakhan. You see this. This is all data that most people figure out the name ignore. They don't care about the material culture and the lived lives of those that contributed to what you see in the material text. They typically ignore it, gloss over it, use it as secondary, tertiary in their studies. Do not do that. When you do that, you will have insufficient information in determining how the name was actually vocalized amongst the actual people that live this culture that you have been divorced from. Okay. Facts, Elder. Elder, you're cheating. Stop cheating, Elder, please. I'm not trying to give them anything too early. Shout out to the Elder D. Glenn Royal in the building. All right. So let me finish reading this, right? Now watch this. The Hebrew Bible, as we have it, is a literary product edited and preserved by scribes over centuries. It reflects theology, not everyday speech. Ancient people, however, encountered their God not first in books, but in names, oaths, seals, letters, prayers. These things predate the final redacted form of the Tanakh. So we must analyze it to get all the understanding we have. Now remember, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh is an epigraphic text, like the Moabite stele, like the Teldan stele, like in some Assyrian administrative texts. I understand that it's there, but it's the context. The context is it is in a regnal fashion amongst kings and dignitaries. That's different. Remember, I told y'all. But the shortened version we're going to see goes back a little earlier and attested by cultures outside of Israel before we get Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh is later. Yod-Heh-Wav is much earlier. That's what we see in the epigraphic record. All right, watch this, right? If we want to know the earliest form of the divine name, we must ask a different question. How was the name actually used by real people in the ancient world? 3, where the earliest evidence actually comes from. When we examine the oldest non-biblical evidence, archaeological inscriptions, administrative documents, and personal names, we repeatedly encountered Yod-Heh-Wav, best vocalized as Yahu. This form appears in multiple independent contexts. Personal names from ancient Israel and Judah, for examples, names ending in Yahu. Aramaic papyri from Jewish community the Israelite community at Elephantine in Egypt, or Misraim. Cuneiform documents written by non-Israelites who clearly understood the name as pronounceable, and southern Levantine inscriptions predating or paralleling the biblical text. In these sources, Yahu is not an abbreviation. It is a complete functional divine name, spoken, written, and understood across cultures. By contrast, the 4-letter form Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh appears almost exclusively in biblical literary texts, not in everyday documents. Now, when we say not in everyday documents would be like the Tel-Arad letters, the Lachish letters, Elephantine Papyri. Outside of just that region, also if we go to Babylonian captivity, we have the Al-Yakudu letters. We're going to see Yod-Heh-Wav used in these contexts in everyday letters and works, seals for names. You'll see Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, but it's strictly in a political, diplomatic fashion. See, this type of approach to the naming of deities is nothing new. Babylon did it for their chief patron deity. Assyria did it for their chief patron deity. The Akkadians did it. And Egyptians did it. But what happens is when you don't study the Bible against its ancient Near Eastern background, you ignore or you are not privy to this data. So what I'm showing here is not something that is foreign to those who have studied the subject matter. It's well known. However, I just want to expose y'all to it so you can consider why I use this, right? Why this name matters. Names preserve older history. Personal names are one of the most conservative elements of language. Parents pass them down. Communities preserve them. Empires change, but names often survive. When ancient Israelites named their children, they embedded the name of their God into those names. Hundreds of biblical figures carry names that end in Yahu or Yah. These are not symbolic placeholders. They reflect how the divine name was actually pronounced. If YHWH were the original spoken form, we would expect to see it reflected directly in names. Instead, what we see consistently and overwhelmingly is Yahu. This strongly suggests that Yahu came first, and YHWH represents a later scribal and theological development. How YHWH likely developed. The monograph does not argue that YHWH is invented or illegitimate. I want to make sure you understand this in the context in which I am writing this. I'm not illegitimizing YHWH. Rather, it proposes a historical sequence. Yahu emerges as a regional divine name in the southern Levant. Israelites adopt and centralize this deity. Scribes preserve the name in writing as YHWH, possibly expanding or formalizing it. And over time, pronunciation becomes restricted, leading to silent substitution and mystery. There's a reason why, according to the legend, why the Nakud was removed, or even the name outright, YHWH, was removed, replaced for Hashem, Adonai, etc. There's a reason for that. Because the scribes who are writing during this time, especially into the LXX, do not want the heathen to desecrate the name of YHWH. All right, say it and pronounce it in vain. In this model, YHWH is not the origin of the name, but its canonical form. What about Yahweh? Now you see vestiges of Yahu and Yah in the text. We see it. Yahu in names and Yah in Psalm 68 and Exodus 15. So these are vestiges that exist in it that is earlier than YHWH. YHWH is more likely a scribal convention that is used to write the name in its canonical approved form. When I say approved within the royal courts of Israel. During the monarchy, you're not going to see YHWH prior to the monarchy in Israel, but you will see YHWH. These are just points that I'm pointing out. All right, let's keep going. All right. The familiar pronunciation Yahweh is a scholarly reconstruction, not an ancient quotation. It is based on later Greek transcriptions, biblical interpretation, and linguistic theory. The problem is not that Yahweh is impossible. It's that it is less directly attested than Yahu. The monograph argues that historical reconstruction should prioritize what is actually preserved in ancient evidence, not what fits later theological explanations best. Keep that in mind. And I would love to see somebody argue this from the material culture. I would love to see you argue a higher for the material culture, because the people that wanted to debate me on this or whatever, they subscribe to a higher. Okay, that's fine. Right? One person subscribed to Yahweh. That's fine. I want you to show me this attested in the epigraphic record, right? Prior to the monarchy in Israel. Show that to me. You'd have to prove it. Let's keep going. Why this is a paradigm shift. This research challenges a long-standing assumption that the most sacred name must also be the most original. Instead, it shows that theology often comes after lived religion. Literary texts preserve interpretation, not always origin, and archaeology and onomastics preserve practice, not doctrine. By shifting the evidentiary center from scripture alone to the full ancient record, the monograph reframes how we understand Israel's God, not as suddenly revealed in the text, but as historically embedded in the ancient East within the tribal community of the Israelites. Why this matters today. This is not merely an academic debate. Understanding how the divine name developed helps us better understand the formation of Israelite religion, the relationship between Israel and its neighbors, how sacred traditions evolve over time, how theology can obscure earlier history. It also invites humility, recognizing that our inherited religious language is the result of centuries of transmission, interpretation, and preservation. It's not a bad thing that we got where we at, but it's just knowing the history. Conclusion. Recovering the earliest voice. Yahu before YHWH does not attempt to strip meaning from faith or tradition. Hold fast to what I'm saying. Instead, it listens carefully to the earliest voices still audible in stone, ink, and names. These voices, or those voices, speak a clear and consistent word. Before YHWH was written, Yahu was spoken. Okay. All right. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I know some of y'all in there, you don't want the heavy stuff. So I'm going to find a part of my paper that goes into a little bit of the heavy stuff, right? Let me see. Let me see. Should I do... Let me do... I'll do Appendix C. Appendix C. And I had 2 other appendices that are missing from here. That's crazy. I'm gonna add those later. But let me do this. I'm gonna share this. Let me share this with y'all real quick. Okay. Orthography, my tres lecciones, and the limits of phonological inference. This appendix addresses orthographic objections to prioritizing Yod He Wav by examining the historical development of Hebrew spelling practices, evolution of matres lecciones, right? Matres lecciones developed unevenly in Northwest Semitic scripts, appearing first in final position and later internally. Their use and proper names often preceded the systematic adoption elsewhere, reflecting a desire to preserve pronunciation fidelity and socially significant lexemes. All right. Yod He Wav as plane spelling. The presence of Wav in Yod He Wav is best interpreted as a plane marker for a long U vowel. This is consistent with the suffix Yahu and with comparative Semitic orthography. Far from indicating lateness, such spelling may represent phonological conservatism. Yod He Wav as orthographic stabilization. The tetragrammatic spelling Yod He Wav may preserve an archaic consonantal skeleton whose vowels were already unstable or ideologically restricted. Its 4-letter form thus reflects scribal and theological concerns, not necessarily an earlier phonological stage. Summary. Orthographic evidence does not privilege Yod He Wav over Yod He Wav in terms of antiquity. On the contrary, Yod He Wav may more transparently encode the spoken form preserved in onomastics and epigraphy. Okay, there's a lot more I can go into this. Like I said, this paper is really, really good. And again, it's short, it's an article, right? But it shows you my position. Now, when I do a lecture or a speech or something on this, then I can elucidate further. I can give you more details on it. But I just want people to read it so they can understand my position first before engaging in dialogue on this subject matter. All right? All right. Shout out to Godal, Ha Godal in the building. Shalom, Ak. Pray all is well. You love Yah 2222. Shalom. And T.V.O.I_JA. Shalom. Now, he says something very interesting. It's funny how the Yahweh concept bring more people to their heritage than the Yahu does. Brother, if that is your approach, then you didn't understand a word I just said. But I'll do you one better. I'm going to share a link in the chat, and I would love to have a conversation with you. Please give us a little bit more background. A shout out to Kazakhia. Let me see. Kazakhia, Yasharound 9121. Shalom. Rather I agree with you or not, I know your stance is genuine. I appreciate the effort of scholarship you give on this matter. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But this is for T.V.O.I_JA. This link here is for you. All right. Since the other 2 people who were supposed to show up backed out and they was trying to defend Ahaya, one of them was trying to defend Yahweh, and all 3 of them backed out. But this link is here for you. Click on the link, join this panel, and let's have a conversation about that. All right. I'm okay with people disagreeing. I would love to hear the position. I would love for them to show me where in the scholarship I showed what's wrong, do a gap analysis on it. Let me know where its current state is not mentioned a consensus state, etc. Feel free to go through that with me. I have no problem. All right. Shout out. Oh, I already gave you a shout out, my brother. All right. TX Mando in the building. Salute. All right. So TVOI_JA. Click the link. Let's have a conversation, brother. I'll be right back. right? Or anybody else. It doesn't have to be him. If somebody else disagrees with this, has questions on this, I'm okay with that. Like I said, it's something I've been looking into for some years, and I will give you enough of a response not to betray the actual paper itself that I would love for you to read. Again, I made it very short and it's easily accessible. There is a more technical form of this that goes more deeper into phonology, morphology, etc. This paper wasn't written so that people can be made foreign to the material, but it's written so that way, even though there's some technical information in it, is accessible, right? You can read it, you can understand it, etc. Right? But the link is there. Shout out to King Ya in the building. So if I see that nobody wants to join and discuss this, that's fine. I'll open up the Q&A and we can have a Q&A. I'll open up the let me take this down. I'll open up the panel and you can come on and we could do a Q&A or a quick build. All right. All right. Shalom. The letters W and V did not exist in the ancient language. The letters name was U-A-U. Is that what you're saying? U-U. The modern Hebrew dialect changed it to Wav, Vav. If so, Yod He Wav He should be Yod He. Are you saying which more fitting to Yah? I'm trying to understand what you mean. All right. So we have something called a shuruk. So in Hebrew, you have a chulam, you have a shuruk. And what these things is, they transform a wav into the o sound or the u sound. The shuruk changes it to the u sound. That gives it the u sound, right? It's called wav. Well, we say it in English, W-A-W. Vav is more Ashkenazic, right? But wav, or more Tiberian, leaning towards Ashkenazic. But wav would be something that would be slightly older than that vocalization system. However, that U that you put in there, again, the wav represents that U sound. It has that U sound, right? So I'm not sure what you mean in regards to that. Maybe it's just a matter of you prefer U instead of W, but in Hebrew, you understand what a shuruk is, and a shuruk or shuruk, definitely it's a U sound that's represented by a wav. It has a dagesh that gives it the U sound. And when you see that, you understand you're not pronouncing it as a consonant, but it is taking the place as a vowel, consonant in the place of the vowel, which we call the matres lecciones, right? And let me see this. Davan, do you think the text using a shortened form of the word in poetry, Yah, adds to the evidence of different pronunciations being understood beyond the official Yod He Wav He? Yes, but we have to account for Yah, Yahu, and Yod He Wav He, or Yahweh, or Yahweh, however you want to pronounce it, in a development or an evolution. So Yah is more poetical in its early stage, and then it's replaced in its later stage by Yod He Wav He. It is more narrative and prose. However, Yod He Wav is preserved in theonyms, the fork names, and in the material evidence prior to the text. Okay. So when we learn to see why they use in what context, then we can parse through it and understand, okay, this is why we find this, this, and this in here, right? It's a matter of trying to understand. Okay, no problem, big kid. I think we're on the same page. I was just trying to find why you replaced that W with the U sound, because you say that the Wav Vav came later. I understand that, and you say it should more have the U sound. Okay. Now the thing is that people would say that if we see Yod He U He, it'd be pronounced Yahuwah. I used to hold that position back in 2013, 2014, 2015. I abandoned that in late 2015, 2016. I abandoned that pronunciation. You'll hear me say it in some early videos, but I abandoned it. I liked it. I liked the way it sounded. But when I went back into the language heavily, I realized it doesn't line up with the language convention of CVC and other parts of the language convention. So I've abandoned Yahuwah. So I've removed myself from it, right? Y'all are getting it. Y'all are getting all praises. All praises. Yes, so Otto Hibbler, I just gave my position on Yahuwah. Yahuwah, again, betrays the Hebrew orthography of CVC, which is consonant, vowel, consonant. you have to, there's a lot that needs to be twisted in order to support that spelling and that pronunciation. I've discussed this in the past. If somebody wants to discuss it with me again, you can get on stage, we can have the conversation and going into it. But I don't think that proper Hebrew morphology and orthography does not support the spelling or the pronunciation of Yahuwah. Right now, I'm not saying that it's because it's bad when people say that. I'm not saying that. If that's you're awoken, the name you was awoken to, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that Yahuwah, when you understand the conventions of the language, you'll understand that it is not proper Hebrew, right? You have to make a lot of concessions in order for that to work, right? Is elder, right? Nulad. Yeah, nulad or nolad. The speaker involuntary produces the W sound, right? Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, elder. All right. So brother Banks, I would love to have a discussion with you, brother. Sure, the link should be in the chat. I'm gonna end off. So what I'm gonna do is, because my time, I have 20 minutes left. I'm gonna bring on whoever joins the panel. I'm gonna try to give a couple of minutes to everybody, and then I'm gonna close out. All right. So TX Manual says, what pronunciation are you using now? The one I've always used, which is Yahu. That's what I use personally. However, in certain circles, forums, conversations, etc., I may say Yahweh, I may say Yahweh, I may say Yahuwah. I'll say that based on who I'm talking to. If the question surrounds the naming convention, then I'll use Yahu and I'll explain why I hold that approach, which I just went over with y'all, right? So that's what I currently use, and that's what we have attested as the earliest in the epigraphic records. All right. Mystical order of Yisrael. What pronunciation of the tetragrammaton with a O vowel? I'm not sure what you mean. You mean Ya'o? That's what you're talking about? Ya'o? I think that's what you're saying. I'm not sure. Yeah, definitely. You know, we always go off over here. All praises to the Most High. Yeah. Oh, you asked a question, Minkole? All right, let me see. What was the cause of the delineation politically, culturally, colloquially, and politically? Brother, that would require a lot of feedback. Can't do that in 19 minutes, 18 minutes now. So I'll have to address that another time, or jump in the chat, Minkole. Go to the Patreon chat and ask the question. We'll try to address it there. All right. All right. So I shared the link for you, Brother Banks. So feel free to click the link to join in. But what I want people to see is that a lot of our regulars here, they understand logic. They have a critical thinking apparatus that they apply when they see the text. They understand the subject matter, maybe not overtly technically, but they understand the subject matter. And they're able to ask questions based on what I've shared. So all I've done is guide them to the methodology, and now they are applying it. Yes, sis is on Patreon. Let me share that link with you so that you have it. And for anybody else that don't have the link for where it's at on the Patreon, I'm going to share it right now. All right. Here it is right here. It's in the chat. All right. Okay, I see you, brother. You said you're in the back. Okay, I got you. Yeah, I want to see it too. We got to see it too. But let's see if they do. All right. Yes, it is, brother. So those who are studying Hebrew, you will understand exactly what I'm saying. Again, I've done a course on beginner Hebrew. It's on the Patreon. I have several courses in addition to that, at least 4 of them in addition to that, that is on the Patreon that you can get access to. And I have the elder D. Glenn Royal in here. I watch his readings. I watch his content. Very enlightening, very studious and astute elder who is well-versed in the language. And I learned a lot from watching his content. Go subscribe to D. Glenn Royal, and he goes over some of this, but he also does other stuff, right? He also does some kind of mini homiletic teachings and stuff like that on there. But I yield when I need to yield, right? I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And when I don't know, I yield to sources, or I yield to elders that I know who has a better handle on this than I do. And I agree. We all should learn classical Hebrew. classical Hebrew, right? That's very important, right? Benjamin Noonan is another source that I go to in regards to Hebrew as well, or the recent consensus when things shift and change in Hebrew. Benjamin Noonan or Benjamin Noonan is a good source on that as well. All right. Okay. Probably from the topic, probably not a topic for today, but I'm curious to know how all of this was lost in the Bantu speakers and West Africans today. Many hold they never had this tongue. Thoughts. That is a whole nother kavod, Yahu, Yasharal. That is a whole nother conversation. And as far as Bantu speakers speaking a fluent Hebrew or ancient Hebrew, that's a whole nother conversation we got to unpack. That's compositional. It has compositional layers to it that have to be peeled back. But I understand where that position comes from. But I'll say that that's a tricky one. That is a tricky one. All right. All right. So let me get to this. Oh, yeah. I'll pull up the elders YouTube channel on here. I'll pull it up for you so you can see his channel. I'll pull up his channel. I don't know if he's still in here. He can share it as well. Here it is. Don't flag me, Elder. I'm playing one of your videos. Let me mute this so that they don't flag me. Because they'll try to flag me just for playing his video. All right. So I'm going to share his link with y'all. It's right here. All right. Now, he's one of 4 elders that I follow when it comes to the language, or I'll put something to. He watches the channel a lot, and I appreciate that. There's other elders that him and 3 other elders that are in the community. One of them is my elder, which is Moray Minister Carnes, right? And then there's others like the brother Shail, the elder Shail, and others who I follow in regards to the language. And I take notes and I study, etc. Right? But they're the way they address the language is in a different lane than how I'm addressing language in the material culture, right? But I use some of that to interpret what I find in material culture, to learn stuff about the language, and then go into that. Now, outside of those 4 elders in the Israelite community, 4 elders in the Israelite community, there's authors and scholars outside the Israelite community that I also consult with. And there's also books and papers that I read as well, right? But let me do this, right? Shout out to my brother Ja SHO77. Also, shout out to the Teacher Divine for continuously dropping these papers on Patreon. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, come to Marietta GA. Yahu goes back much further. All right. So, School of Skills. Oh my God. No, I lost. Hey, brother, can you come back into the back chat, brother, into the back panel so I can add you to the stage? I'm sorry. I was just trying to get through a lot of these inquiries and these statements that was being made in the chat before I added you. Please come back, brother. Please. As soon as you come back, I'll bring you on stage and we can have our discussion. All right. So that's for TVOI _ JA. Click on the link, join back. All right. If anybody else wants to join as well, let me know. The link is there. Click on the link and we can discuss that. But I'm trying to find some of our Ahaya subscribers here. There's nobody here subscribed to Ahaya. Shout out to Asantua Ariella in the building. Shalom says, nobody here subscribes to Ahaya. It's like every time I do this, the people who talk about Ahaya, the loudest, they never show up. Who subscribes to Ahaya? Those that subscribe to Yahweh, being the most ancient form of Hebrew, I got to ask you how you get YHWH. I'm not here to undermine your faith, pull the rug from underneath you, or nothing like that. We're just here to re-examine this. If you want to keep that, that's fine. As long as you can explicate it to me and break it down, I'm here. But I have not seen anybody do that yet. So it's become very difficult to have these conversations, all right? Thoughts on Ihye as name? I've been examining this as option, but not sure phonetically. Well, Ihye simply just means I am, right? Ihye. So the aleph prefix is going to give you the I, the first person, singular I, future tense. Third person would be yod, that's prefix. I am, M being your stative verb, that is going to be I am. Now, that again, when he says, tell them the I am was a way to obfuscate or to put the name in a way in which it is a front for the Yahweh name, YHWH name. When you read Exodus 3, you'll see that it's a front name that shields or covers the YHWH name, which is the covenantal name. Whereas the front name was Eye to obscure this name. We see this literature also in ancient Greece. Well, literature such as that where a deity it gives its front name that obscures its hidden name, its revealed name to a particular patron or group or whatever the case may be, right? Shout out to Yasaf Da'ach Shalom. Seeing that he is the supreme being, will pronunciation be held against us? No, it will not be held against you. As far as I know, I don't have the final say on that. What I'm saying is this is a journey of research that we all at some point come to because we all call him as something. The fact that he says that this is my name perpetually and the name is to be invoked, there has to be some relevance to the name. Now, again, we make our feeble attempts because those who came before us have done a disservice in not preserving it over time. And it was done as a way to protect that sacred name, right? So we are just trying to get back. It's not like we're purposely mispronunciating the Most High's name or mispronouncing his name. That's not what we're doing. Our objective is not to misenunciate it. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to reconstruct it so we can follow his command, his mitzvah on this is my name, keep my name, invoke my name. When the text says call upon the name of the Lord, it's talking about what we would call religion. It's a sacrifice that is provided, and you invoke the deity by calling its name and calling his attention to the sacrifice that you want him to lap up. We'll see that Abraham does that very thing. He calls upon the name of the Lord. When we see in Genesis where it says, and men began to call upon the name of the Lord, that's what they're doing. They discovered the sacred name and they're using it for invocation to invite the deity to come lap up the sacrifice, the life force out of the sacrifice. Okay. All right. Shout out to Shakur, the young lion in the building. Brother Shakur, Ak Shakur, did you get the book? Let me know if you got the book. Hit one if you got the book, brother. Shout out to Royalty Chekeya. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Shabbat Shalom. I am Jay Showtime in the building. Shalom King. Yes, mulatto rights activist. Yes, it is open. I'm going to add you to the stage now. Let me just see. Yeah, schools. You already know, brother. You are a resident troll. We love you. Click the link. Join the stage. All right.
Peace.
Mulattoism.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thanks for having me up. And
No problem.
I know that you said that you have a troll in the chat,
Yeah.
but this is a very serious discussion, so I don't want to be accused of trolling, and I'm here genuinely.
Okay.
My question is, with all due respect, now, full disclosure, certain elements of the Bible, yes, I definitely agree with, and I think that they will not think I know that they will benefit our community, such as not killing each other, not killing our babies, not engaging in homosexuality, etc., etc., etc. But my question is, especially in 2026, as descendants of U.S. chattel slaves, in your estimation, does the Hebrew Israelite paradigm divide our ethnicity, or does it unify us? And when I ask that, I'm asking that not as a loaded question, but the reason I ask that is because you and I both know that there are descendants of U.S. chattel slaves that follow an array of different religions. And just so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to put you in the trick bag, in my estimation, all of these religions ultimately divide us. So back to the focal point, do you think that the Hebrew Israelite paradigm is the solution to unify our ethnicity?
No. Now let me give some more detail about it. When you say Hebrew Israelite paradigm, that can refer to a multiplicity of things because there are different groups in the Israelite community. It's not a monolithic group. So you're going to have different groups that have different perspective on identifying as an Israelite. Same way with any other religion, any other culture. Like there's Jews who are Orthodox, ultra Orthodox, conservative, liberal, reformed, whatever, right? So you're gonna have different perspectives in the community. Now, I can only answer for my particular position, all right? I can't answer for nobody else's. I can only answer for my position, right? Now, before I answer your question, because I'm gonna show you how the paradigm we use here at KHM is not divisive. And I'm going to show you how, right? Because we have a working framework in order to take the principal feature set that we utilize here and implement it in the Black community to achieve autonomy, which is the solution to reduce or mitigate the societal ills that we face in America today. Those of us who are Black, African American, and whatever byword you want to use, FBA, if you want to use that, that's fine. But before I answer that, and I show this to you, this is something that we have what's called the Covenant Social Reconstruction Model. I would like to know, how did you get your name? I would love to know that.
Yes, and pan mulattoism is a result of me, of course, being a mulatto, and throughout my years, I went through different phases of Pan Africanism throughout different stages of my life, and many times, not just in Pan Africanist circles, but just in general. Even when I took a trip to Africa, actual so-called Black people, actual sub-Saharan African people with no racial admixture, they were always able to make a distinction between themselves and myself, for better or for worse, whether that was in a negative way or just a honest assessment of the biological difference between myself and them. So I had to be honest with myself and acknowledge, yes, I am of African descent, but I'm also of European descent. I also have Native American and Asian ancestry. So I have to embrace the totality of what I am instead of just parts of myself.
Got it. So which side of your family is white?
Well, actually, thank God, both of my parents are mulattoes. On my mother's side, we are Melungeon, and on my pop's side, we are Lumbee.
Okay, interesting. Okay. All right. So the only reason I'm asking is because I want to make sure that because I'm gonna say this. We've had a lot of trolls on this channel before construct all types of names purposely, right? To conflate what their alternative motives are. So I'm just asking you to see if it's genuine, which I deemed it to be, before I answer your question, to make sure that I'm not answering it in vain, right? But yes, I'm gonna answer to you briefly. And then what I want to do, those of you who are in there that still want to talk on the subject matter, the link is still available. I'm going to put this before him and then we're going to continue from there. The first thing I want to say is this: Pan mulattoism. Have you seen any content on this channel before?
To be honest, no, but I have seen you on other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I'll shout one of them out. I saw you on Sarnetta. So
Mm-hmm.
no, I have not seen your. I've not been privy to your actual information on this particular page, but I have seen your information on other pages, other
Okay.
platforms.
Gotcha. Now the reason why I asked that is because there's a bunch of content that I do create. Like for example, since you mentioned Sonetta, in 2017 there was a Black Power conference. I was one of the speakers, and I gave a lecture called "Globalizing Black Power," right? And how we here as African Americans, right, can utilize our IP to connect with allies across the Atlantic in order for us to unify power and use it as a liberating force to circumvent policy that is adverse to us in America and reestablish one that allows us to grow autonomy, right? I've also worked with the UN to take the initiative that they have put out within the past 10 years and that they've restored for the next 10 years, which is geared towards those of African descent. You have ADOS and FBA. I don't know. Are you FBA or ADOS? Which one are you?
Well, to be honest, I prefer the term U.S. freedman or descendant of U.S. chattel slaves. But if you call me ADOS, I won't set trip. If you call me FBA, I won't set trip. I'm not a gangbanger. But
I got
and
you.
not inferring that ADOS and FBAs are gangs, but I don't. You can refer to me as either one.
Okay. So are you familiar with the Freedmen's Society and the Freedmen's Bureau here in the States?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you utilize that paradigm for liberation of African Americans?
Definitely.
Okay. The question I have is, why is it not working today in 2025?
In my estimation, in my assessment, I believe because we are not a unified ethnicity, and to land my plane because I never want to be long-winded. Literally, from what I see, collectively, descendants of U.S. chattel slaves, we lack a sense of self-preservation. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, even right now, while we are outnumbered by various different ethnic groups in the U.S. right now, we are still advocating for and voting for more immigrants to come to our communities in our country and ethnically displace us. If you look at New York City as an example, there is now one majority Black American community. Not even Harlem, not even Bed-Stuy. I can say the same thing about Boston. I can say the same thing about Miami. Even Compton is no longer majority Black American. So, in closing, the reason that, in my estimation, that the U.S. freedmen paradigm or the reparations and lineage struggle is not successful is because collectively we are not on the same page. We lack a sense of self-preservation.
Okay. Now, what if I can tell you that from the paradigm that I subscribe to as an Israelite, when doing a gap analysis of the failures and successes, the Freedmen's Bureau have a better option to explore that will unite us? How would you feel about that statement?
If it benefits us, then I would never be against it.
Okay, got it. So you see what's there on the screen?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Can you read to me what you see there?
The Covenant Social Reconstruction Model, CSRM, Ron Shields.
And what does it say right above my name? That's my actual name, my pen name. What does it say right above?
I gotta zoom in. Hold on.
Oh, it's kind of small.
Converting ancient conventional law into measurable reform policy for autonomy in the Black community.
Okay, so that's the key. Converting ancient covenantal law into measurable reform policy for autonomy in the Black community.
And I apologize for cutting you off. Please, very briefly, how are you defining Black?
Same way you define it. Let's stick with the same terms. Same way you
define it.
Descendants of African slaves, right?
And can we at least agree that when we read this, everyone is not going to perceive the term Black in the same way? They might perceive it racially, right?
Some politically, some socially. Like the More Scientific America, my brothers and sisters over there, they don't use the term Black as an identifying marker for themselves, right? So what I'm saying is, you're right. Black has a ton of different interpretations, but the one that I'm using now is going to be the one in regards to African descendants of slaves. I'm going to say that, right? FBA, financial Black Americans, I see them both essentially as the same, even though some exclude others and some include others. But what I'm saying is those from the diaspora or the diaspora of the transatlantic slave trade here in the West is who I'm identifying as the Black community. And it's not
specifically, not to get caught on semantics, but specifically in the U.S., correct?
For this conversation, yes, I'm restricting it to the U.S.
Yes, sir.
But I don't limit it to the U.S. because we have in Brazil a whole community of Black people in Brazil. We have the same in Mexico. We have the same in Honduras. We have the same in other parts of the Western Hemisphere.
But
For
brother,
this conversation, hold on, brother.
yes.
For this conversation, I'm going to centralize it on us. When I say us, I
Yes.
am a product of here in the States. That's what I'm saying.
All right, I'm with you. Let's walk.
All right, so let's walk with that. All right. So the thing that I preach is that if somebody has a particular belief, theological perspective, an ideological perspective, a social perspective, or whatever the case may be in regards to our people here in America, if you can produce a viable, rubric measured solution that has the efficacy of 75% or greater to show forth success, a success rate over time with the period of 0 to 5 years and etc., then that should be placed on the table as long as it does not have any boundaries that separate people in how they personally identify themselves. So from my paradigm, identifying as an Israelite, I understand this, and I have to create a framework that is inclusive of those that are here that may be divided by ideological and theological frameworks. So we have to have an underlying framework that supports that does not remove that boundary, but is inclusive of it by instituting principles from my paradigm that can socially benefit the community at large, and not just only benefit one particular portion within the community. Because when you do that, then it's not unifying, it's actually dividing. So that's not the attempt. So what I'm going to do is, from my paper that I put together in regards to the subject matter, I'm just going to read for you the introduction. Okay, if you're interested in that, my email is in the description below. You can read the rest of this, right? And you can go and peer review and see if it's viable and plausible enough for us to implement in 2026, because we already passed 2025. And then what I would implore you to do is that I have a playlist that is on this channel that I go into various solutions for us that's unifying within the Black community. One of them is the one I just mentioned called Globalizing Black Power, how we utilize our IP here in the Americas to make allies across the Atlantic so we can derive resources and other things that is beneficial to us in order for us to establish autonomy or self-governance that mitigates societal ills that are working adversely against us here in America. All right. So here in the introduction, I'm gonna read this, and then what I have to do, brother, is continue on with the show. It's nothing personally against you, but in another open platform that we may have here on another Freestyle Friday, let's say next Friday, feel free to bring this up again, and I'll be more than happy to give it to you. However, I do want to give you some content that you can refer to, and we can move from there. So let me just read the introduction. All right. Torah, and you know what Torah is, right? Just generally speaking.
Of course, yes.
Okay. Slow slavery peoples and the problem of structural repair. Textual exegetical foundations. The Torah rises not as a timeless abstraction, but as a constitutional project for a people emerging from slavery and dispersal into a tennis autonomy between empires. Its legal corpus, land statutes, debt release mechanisms, welfare provisions, judicial procedures must therefore be read as a post-slavery social architecture deliberately designed to prevent the reinscription of Egyptian forms of domination or dominance within Israel's own life. Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus frame this architecture through recurring motifs. Memory as law. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt becomes a normative refrain grounding specific legal obligations towards workers, debtors, and strangers in shared historical trauma. Land as divine trust. Israel is repeatedly reminded that the land is mine. You are but strangers and sojourners with me. Relativizing private ownership and legitimizing radical interventions in property relations. The Jubilee. Holiness as a social ethic. Leviticus 19 links divine holiness not primarily to cult, but to concrete obligations. Timely pay, just weights, love of neighbor and stranger, protection of the disabled and age. As Old Testament ethicists emphasize, the laws function as social engineering. This is how you're going to break those walls through social engineering. This is why think tanks are needed in the Black community that identifies these things, but we rarely have those in existence. Okay. And it says, Rather than mere moralism, they encode a holistic vision of land distribution, credit, welfare, and judicial processes in which the poor, widows, orphans, and resident aliens are structurally defended against accumulation by the powerful, which would be the peers of ours that have their hands in the oppression of us and the suppression of our attempts to become autonomous. That's would be the goal. Dialogues with contemporary nation building and repertory justice. Modern nation building research, such as Rand's Beginner's Guide to Nation Building, distills lessons from post-conflict context into a sequence of core tasks: security and rule of law, governance, humanitarian relief, economic stabilization, democratization, and long-term development. These tasks are not radically alien to the Torah. Rather, the Pentateuch's covenantal law anticipates many of them, especially in the domains of rule of law, land policy, social welfare, and political legitimacy. In parallel, the International Decade for People of African Descent frames the condition of Afro-descendant populations worldwide in terms of recognition, justice, and development, explicitly naming the legacies of slavery, colonialism, and racial capitalism as drivers of contemporary disparities. The UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent's mission to the United States documents alarming levels of police violence, mass incarceration, health inequities, and economic exclusion faced by African Americans, concluding that ordinary civil rights measures are insufficient to dismantle structural racism. That's the issue. Taken together, nation building and repertory justice literatures provide a procedural and normative frame. Torah provides a substantive social design, a post-slavery blueprint that can be translated into modern institutional forms for a post-slavery people. Understand the concept, the underlying thesis. Now, watch this. As I mentioned, the Freedmen's Bureau, African-American disparities, and the failure of earlier experiments. In order to understand how other experiments that attempted to give us autonomy, you have to do a gap analysis. Here's the results from that. From Reconstruction through Jim Crow and into the present, African-American communities have repeatedly attempted self-generating, semi-autonomous projects. Number one, or one of them, is the Freedmen's Bureau Land Initiatives and 40 Acres and a Move. Promises were truncated by federal retrenchment, white planter resistance, and hostile courts. Black towns and districts such as the Mound Bayou, Greenwood in Tulsa, Jackson Ward in Richmond, and other commercial hubs thrived for a time, but were undermined by racial violence, discriminatory policy, highway construction, and market exclusion. Cooperative projects, the Fannie Lou Hamer's Freedman Farm, 20th century mutual aid societies, demonstrated the viability of Black agrarian and cooperative economies, yet lacked enduring legal protections, access to capital, and robust institutional succession plans. These efforts reveal at least 4 recurring gaps: lack of a codified internal legal ethical framework, i.e. a constitution binding Black institutions to shared standards of land, debt, labor, and welfare; vulnerability to external state violence and regulatory capture, i.e. massacres, predatory policing, zoning, discriminatory lending; fragmented economic and judicial infrastructure, leaving communities dependent on hostile courts and financial systems; and absence of an explicit repertory logic, a theology or jurisprudence that frames Black autonomy not as separatism, but as overdue corrective justice. And now I'm going to present the framework for this in 1 second. Hold on. Let me see. Why are you in here, sir?
It's nighttime, so can I have my toy?
No, it's not midnight yet. Wait 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. My son just guess he's focused on something else. All right, let me present the paradigm shift for you. All right, the Covenant Social Reconstruction Model as paradigm shift. The Covenant Social Reconstruction Model, CSRM, is proposed as a paradigm shifting framework precisely at this intersection. It treats the Torah's post-Egypt law as a post-plantation design grammar, a coherent pattern for land distribution, debt regulation, judicial structure, welfare, and time rhythm that can be consciously recontextualized for Black America. It explicitly integrates UN reparatory justice frameworks, reading African Americans as a people of African descent whose right to recognition, justice, and development is affirmed in international law. Let me get back here. It borrows from nation-building best practices in sequencing tasks, rule of law, governance, economic base, democratization, but applies them to an internal colony rather than an external failed state. Most distinctively, CSRM proposes two spatial anchors: Goshen enclaves, off-grid or semi-off-grid community-owned rural or peri-urban settlements modeled on the biblical Goshen, designed to be minimally dependent on hostile markets and state systems for food, water, energy, and basic governance. And two, urban refuge centers, city-embedded hubs functioning as modern cities of refuge, sites of legal defense, asylum for police persecution and domestic violence, and restorative courts. This paper argues that CSRM offers an unexplored third path beyond assimilation into a structurally racist order or romantic separatism, a covenant-rooted, institutionally rigorous, and internationally legible model for autonomous yet interdependent Black communities in the United States. When you ask what in the Hebrew Israelite paradigm can be offered to remove all these dividing markers that forces us into a conundrum of disparity amongst various groups and factions, this is my proposition to resolve those borders.
Respect what you just said and what you just read. And I know you had to get back to the subject of tonight. So please just give me 30 seconds and, I'll respectfully leave, and I appreciate you having me up. Number one, I do want to read the rest of what you have written. That would be very informative. But the point I wanted to make, and it'll be so brief, is that terms like Black, terms like people of African descent, in my assessment, are too vague. And if we continue to use them, then the beneficiaries of everything we build will be comparable to the beneficiaries of DEI and affirmative action, which went to other ethnicities that were officially designated as minorities. So if we don't use lineage specific language, such as, like I said, you said FBA, ADOS, freedmen, descendants of U.S. chattel slaves, then everything that we build will go to other ethnicities, and maybe some of it may trickle down to our descendants if they are lucky. But thanks for having me up. And in closing, let's not have ethnic ADHD. Let's practice self-preservation as descendants of U.S. chattel slaves. Much love to you, brother. Really, King. Thanks for having me up.
Anytime, anytime. So what I would say is I normally do not ignore an opportunity to present a paradigm from the Israelite community that can resolve the issues of those who don't subscribe to what we subscribe to, because it'll bring us close to the core values, ethics, etc., that we do subscribe to, that can enhance everything that we need to become autonomous, that's minimally invasive, and that allows people to have their particular distinctiveness in order for this to be achieved. All right. And yes, I was saying the same thing too, still Ron. I'm like, that's that heavy Baltimore accent definitely was there. Shout out to all my Baltimoreans that's in the building. I just made that up. Whatever. Right. I don't shy away from those opportunities, because I want people to see that working with the Torah is a viable solution to revitalize and liberate the Black community. It's all in how you frame it. It's all in how you lay out the blueprint. It's all in how you think tanked the different parties involved, contingency plans, the resources necessary, etc., in order for it to be effectual in 2026 in America, right? So I say this to say, whenever I'm approached with that, now in 2026, this is the blueprint that we're sticking with, the CSRM. However, I have tons of other videos and papers that I've written over the years, of the course of at least 11 years. I think in 2014, I was exposed to the International Decade of People of African Descent. And that gave me some of the blueprint to actually create a viable solution to allow us to become autonomous. And I took that Nan's Nation Building Guide, and I took the Torah principles from the Torah, and I blended them together. I wrote out a plan. I needed a little assistance, right, to polish it. So I tell ChatGPT, hey, review it. Let me know, what best takes to go. It spit something out. I had to edit it and do all the other stuff to it. But I got it in a format over the course of the past year or two to where now it is a viable solution. And I also have in volume 3 how to implement it step by step. And I went over that with y'all on this channel, let me see, a couple months ago, right? And those of you who's on a Patreon, you already read the paper, right? So when I have those opportunities, I'm going to share it. Now, it's very rare that I'm going to stop our show to address something like that, but I sensed that he was genuine and he wanted to see what the paradigm is, and he's never been exposed to that type of thinking and that type of approach in the Israelite community. Because he wanted me to say, oh, my brother, you got to keep the statute, laws, commandments of the Most High Yah. It's nothing. It's no other thing. It's no other originally and this and this and that. No, everybody can come to the Most High Yah. Now, again, that may be our core sentiment to get the lost sheep, but that is not how you pivot and propose. You have to find another way to do that, because if he wants that, he can get that rhetoric on the corner. But when you come here, we're going to give you a think tank model to work with that's going to properly social engineer our community to agree to principles that can't be argued, that is more beneficial than detrimental, where the pros outweigh the cons, in a framework that is pragmatic and something that people who do not identify as Israelites will be willing to come to the table and say, yes, let's try it. Let's implement it. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the show. We already 20 minutes over because of that, but hopefully he can take that, bring that to his superiors, and they can say, oh, shoot, there's a real viable plan within the Israelite community, and come this way. All praises to the Most High. All right. Let's get back to where we was at. Let me wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Shout out to Jason Pompey. Would the Messiah name be Yahushua? No, it wouldn't be Yahushua. So the individual that we call Jesus, who lived in the 1st century CE in Roman-occupied Judea, they colloquially spoke Aramaic, and he would have been called Yeshua. That is an Aramaic name. He would have called Yeshua. Now, Yehoshua, some say Yehoshua, Yahushua, right? The way that you have it spelt will go back to a Hebrew form, not the Aramaic form, even though the Aramaic form does go back to the Hebrew form. But this is what he would have been called. He would have been called Yeshua Bar Yosef. Bar means son of Yosef, right? It is in the construct form, right? Bar, just like Bain is in a construct form, Bene. It's the construct form. Bar is Aramaic, Bene is Hebrew, right? He would have been called Yeshua Bar Yosef. Now, some attach Hamashiach, the Messiah, to him, okay? But that would have been his given name, right? His surname would have been Bar Yosef, right? Yeshua Bar Yosef. Now, Yosef also goes back to a Hebrew word, but he would have been called that. That's how he would have been known. When I say his name, I say Yeshua, but you have to have an identifying nomenclature for Yeshua, because anybody could be Yeshua. So I say Yeshua Bar Yosef, or you can say Yeshua the Nazarene, or you can say Yeshua Hamashiach, even though there was other Yeshua, Messiah, and prophet figures within 100 BCE to 200 CE. So you got to be distinctive on who you're saying, right? So when I say Bar Yosef, that's specific on that particular individual who some call the Messiah, right? The Mashiach, right? So somebody is saying wrong. Timothy 4a. Don't know who that is. If you disagree on anything that's being said, no problem. Just like I invited School of Skills to join. And I don't know what happened to the other brother that wanted to posit the Yaswan Kodash here. He's gone. Timothy 4a says, you sound Jewish. All right, cool. Here's the link. Just click on it and let's go. The father's name is Yahu. So Yahu is the name that I mentioned earlier. But when we say Yahu in a personal name, we're dealing with something a little different. If we're going to look at the defective and the planning form, of Joshua's name in the Tanakh. We can examine that. But when we say, oh, he said he came in his father's name, that just means his father's authority. The same way that a king will send an ambassador, that the ambassador will hold the same authority, the same ability to sign off, the same diplomacy, the same everything that the king has. He has embedded or put in that diplomat to go and represent the nation. Yeshua is the diplomat of the Father, and he's been sent to do that very thing. He acts as an agent on behalf of the Father. The Father gets the credit vicariously through the Son. The Son is the agent on behalf of the Father. Right? So again, Yahweh says, you sound Jewish as wild. That's what he says. But Timothy 4a, the link is there, brother. Let's go into it. Let's go into onomastics if you like. Let's deal with the orthography, right? Let's deal with the phonology, the morphology, the syntax. We can go into the juncture. We can go into all of these little things if you want and have a conversation. Yo, why you messing? Why you a deacon is crazy. Yo, I'm trying to see anytime, Jason. So Jason, let me honestly address what you said, since nobody's clicking the link. And I see, and I went back and saw some names of some people who in the past disagree with me on this. Why y'all not clicking the link? I don't know why y'all not clicking the link. I have no clue. Y'all was loud and strong in the past, and I don't see y'all. Even School of Skills, INC, our resident troll, he never clicks the link, ever. Never, ever clicks the link. Hold on one second. Wow, my apologies. My son is persistent. All right. So I'm gonna go over that with you. Let's go into the text and we can go into that. But I don't see anybody really clicking the link, so I guess we're not gonna have that conversation. It's all good. The link is there if anybody changed their mind last minute. But let's go ahead and address what you said. Let me bring this out real quick. Let me go to let me go here. Let's bring out Numbers 13. And we're gonna bring out tribe of Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Ephraim, Benjamin. We're gonna bring Hosea. All right, I want to first examine Hosea. Let's go here. Numbers 13. Okay, share screen. All right, so this is Numbers chapter 13, verse 8, right? We have Ephraim Hosea, right? Bain Nun, right? So Hosea, this was actually Joshua's original name that then transitioned or transformed to Joshua, right? So looking at Hosea, right? Let's go into Hosea, right? Take a look at Hosea. The root word is Yashah, which we know it means salvation, but it's a rendering of that, Hosea, and it means salvation, family name of Joshua, the son of Nun, and then other people who've had it as well, right? This root Hosea means a deliverer. Hosea, the name of 5 Israelites, Hosea, etc., right? And then we get into detail about the proper name. It's from the BDB, right? Proper name is masculine. Salvation on form compare to Ham, what? Ham Shel Ha Shemed. On pronunciation, original name of Joshua according to Numbers 13, blah, 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 right? What I want to show you is this, right? The original name that he had, Joshua, was Hosea, right? Which goes back to Yasha. Yasha will be your primitive root, your verbal shoresh means to save, right? In the verb stem. However, it can be rendered in the nifal, the passive, or the hifal causative, right? All depends on where you find it at, right? But his original name was Hoshea, right? Hoshea. That was his name. And then later on, we're going to see that name change, okay? So let's get into where we see that name change. I'm going to pull up this here. Let's go back here. Here. All right, let me get Ephraim 8. And let me show you these comparable passages. Let me see if I can find the one I'm looking for. What's the best one I want to use? I could just do anything with Joshua. I could probably go back to Devarim or Deuteronomy where Joshua is mentioned. All right, let's do that. All right, I want to show you this. And then I also want to show you in Hebrews 4, that rest bringing the Israelites into the land, that's referring to this Joshua, not Jesus. Even though Jesus can be Joshua, when you translate it from the Greek to the Latin to the English, I'm going to bring it up here. Let's get Devarim 31 and 14, Deuteronomy chapter 31 and verse 14, right? So, Vayomer Yehovah el Moshe Chinka Rebu La Kara called it Yehoshua right here. So what I want you to do is look at what we got here. Your Yod Shewe He. Here's your Cholam, right? Over your Wav. Now the Wav can also be a Shuruk, and it can have a Dagesh in the middle, but when the dot is over it, it's the O sound, the Cholam, right? And then we have a Shin, and then we have a but underneath, which is the U sound, the Ayin in your Patah, right? Yod He. Then we have this, right, which is our Wav. Shin Ayin. Yehoshua. Now, typically, when you see these diagonal 3 dots, this diacritic mark here, it is replacing another Wav that would have a dot in the middle, a dagesh in the middle, that would be the Shuruch. So this right here is called defective writing because the consonant sound, the consonant that's substituting as a vowel, has been removed to shorten or contract the spelling, and it's been preserved underneath the sheen here, right? Yeah, Hoshua. All right. So this is now, he's being called this outside of, so Numbers 13 is where you actually see his origin, right? You see the tribe he comes from, and he's a leader of the tribe of Ephraim, right? That's Joshua, which is interesting because the Most High preserved a representative of the northern tribes and a representative of the southern tribes after the demise and destruction of that initial generation in the wilderness, right? And he preserved who from the northern tribes? Joshua. Who from the southern tribes? Caleb, right? And remember, Caleb was the leader of Judah. There's no way Caleb could have been an Edomite when he's the leader of the tribe of Judah. You have to be from that lineage in order for you to be a leader or the head over that tribe. Why? Because the Torah says, do not set a foreigner up. So those who say that Caleb was an Edomite, y'all are wild. Y'all are doing nasty work. But that's a whole nother conversation. All right. So Yehoshua, this would be the Hebrew name, Yeho. Now the brother mentioned Yahu. All right. So let's say we didn't have the diacritic marks from the Tiberian vocalization system of the Masoretes. How would I pronounce this, right? Well, if I was using Matres Lecciones, I would keep this Yod sound. I would have Ya, Yod, He. This Wav, like you had mentioned, brother, I would attribute it as a Matres Lecciones and turn the Wav into a U, Yahu. I would keep the Shin, and this would be Yahusha. Why? Because I have no diacritic marks there indicating that there is another vowel in between the shin and ayin, right? But if I did have the full Plane writing, then I would have two wavs in here. Yod, He, Wav, Shin, Wav, Ayin. YHWH, right? So the important thing with Hebrew is you want to have consonant, vowel. That's the structure. That's the morphology, right? And if you want to use a name for the son or the father, it must follow that particular morphology. And it has to make sense. For example, when we look at this word, matter of fact, let's go to the word. Let's go to the word real quick. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. My kids are being a little rowdy. Hold on 1 second. All right, my apologies. Let me wrap up. All right. So what I'm saying is, we have to follow proper morphology in order to understand how to properly spell the words, say the words, right? Your phonology is going to come from your morphology, right? And when we go into Joshua, because I went into Joshua, you see right here, this is the full Plane writing. Yod, He, Wav, Shin, Wav, Ayin. This is the defective writing, which means you're going to remove a consonant to shorten the word and maintain the pronunciation underneath this shin right here. However, when we look at this name, let's go into the name. I want you to see it, right? We have the root Yasha here. And then it says it also comes from Yod, He, Wav, He. Now, the brother was saying, well, what about Yahu? We find the name Yahu. Well, if we find the name Yahu in the name, that is because it goes along with what I said. It's the prefix Yahu that is used in names that has the deity's name in it. It is designed to invoke the deity's attribute or appellation along with its personal name. And that's why names or onomastics, the study of onomastics is important in knowing how the vocalization is preserved and how the families that preserve the name, what cults they were a part of. In this case, they're called the Yahwist cult. Cult is not always a bad word when used in antiquity. It just means a group that subscribes or is doing something in particular and distinct from other groups that surround it. That's all it means, right? Let's take dogma out of the word cult, right? So I'm showing you this to say that in regards to the name for the son, it would be Yeshua, which is the Aramaic version of Yahushua. And that would be the name that he would have been called colloquially, or they would have vocalized during that time. They would have called him that Yeshua, Yeshua Bar Yosef, because you are surnamed after your father, right? So your name and your father's name. We see the same thing happen to Peter, Cephas. He's surnamed after his father. Some of his other disciples are surnamed after their father. That is the naming scheme or the nomenclature of the day and how things are named, how people are named, right? So I'm just showing this to y'all so you can see when we go into analyzing the name, what is the most antiquated name for the Most High is Yahu. I've given you the outline of the paper. If you want to read the paper, the link is in the chat, or you can go to the Patreon, check it out yourself. So you can see why I hold that position or do a replay of this video to see that. But in regards to the son, Yeshua, Yeshua would be the Aramaic name that will be colloquially vocalized when he is invoked or called. However, his name can also be Yehoshua or Yahushua, like the brother had mentioned, but that would only be in a liturgical sense and would probably be pronounced when they are reading the Torah and have their parashah. When they have their parashah, they would probably read what we just read from the book of Joshua or Devarim or somewhere else, and then they would say that, and that would also be an identifier for the person that's named Yeshua. Just like if my name was Michael in English and I was speaking to a Spanish-speaking person and they call me Miguel, Miguel is the same as Michael. Even though I was surnamed Michael, I can also answer to Miguel because Miguel is the Spanish form of the English Michael, which is the Hebrew Mikael, right? So that is what we have going on and how that is The names are overlaid but represent the same individual. So somebody says, what's his name in Hebrew? Okay. What's his name in Hebrew? I just gave it to you. Yeah, I said it. Yasaf, the Ach is Yosef. So, Himothy, I'm going to give you this. I don't know if you've been paying attention. Would you not just paying attention to what I said? I just answered the question. I just answered the question. I told you what it is in Hebrew. I just answered the question. Either I'm going to use the Masoretic vocalization in the Kud, or I'm going to use the Matriz Lecciones, but I just answered the question. The consonantal values do not change. It still stays the same. I did not destroy it, break it, or do anything to it in a way that will be improper on pronouncing it. So you're not paying attention. You spoke gibberish, not Hebrew. Then click the link and tell me how to properly speak Hebrew. That's what I would like for you to do. Otherwise, we're going to time you out, put you in a little kid's corner, and I'm going to wrap up this session. So just let me know what you want to do. You're going to click the link and have the dialogue or not? Are you gonna click it or not? Shout out to Let's Talk Bible. Shalom, King. The Christian Corey. Shalom, my brother. Thank you for showing that you are here amongst us mere mortals. All right, we have the gods amongst us mere mortals. We have my brother Yahu 144 in the building. We have Gadol HaGadol in the building. Right, we are just peons compared to these master teachers. Shout out to my brothers, my Clubhouse brothers, man. Warfare, Rebirth of a Nation, Shalom King, what's going on? All right, so he didn't click the link. All right, cool. So let me do this. Let me wrap up because it's getting late. My kids are getting a little boisterous, so I need to go and do my dad thing. But before I close out, I want to say this, right? We covered a lot of stuff. We began talking about Christmas, and I gave you that Christmas work. We transitioned from that going into this overview paper that I did of the actual paper, so you can kind of get an outline of what it is that I'm discussing in the actual paper. We addressed this FBA situation, Freedmen's Bureau, all this other stuff, Adolphs and stuff that came up earlier, and hit them with the CSRM, the Covenant Social Reconstruction Model, which is from out of the Israelite paradigm to resolve the societal issues that we experience in our communities today. So we provided that. Then we went into a little bit about the son's name. We had a couple of scoffers in the chat, but none of them clicked the link to have the conversation. And y'all allowed this brother to come in here. What's his name? Pan Mulattoism. Y'all allowed him to come in here and have a conversation with me, divert off of the subject matter, and not get back on it. The scoffers are still there, but none of them want to click the link to have a conversation. I just know Russian language when I hear it. Yo. Russian language. I think I should do another session on that. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna speak Yiddish, and then I'm gonna speak Hebrew, and I want to see who notices what's Yiddish and what's Hebrew, right? I think I'm gonna do that because the ignorance is ridiculous in here, right? But anyway, Himothy, since you are not clicking the link, shout out to the great Jordan's Cadet in the building. Shalom King, what's going on, my brother? Yeah, Russian language. I don't know what that means, man. I agree. Some people just can't be helped. I'm not trying to help the brother. I just want to give him an opportunity to spew whatever it is he supports on the stage so we can peer review it. That's all. I'm not going to attack him. Some people think I'm going to come in here and go wild and crazy on him. I don't do that on this platform. Now, if we're on Clubhouse, I'll go in on you. But on here, we're not going to do that to you, right? Because people are going to think that, you know, I'm being biased or it's my platform, so I'm abusing it. We don't do that over here. If you go back and watch any debates we've had on this channel, outside of the one that I hosted last Friday, that you need to go back and check out. Was it last Friday or the week before that? I don't even know. Time is like, I don't know. Instead of outside of those type of debates, when I debate somebody on here, just like when I spoke to that brother Pan Mulattoism, if you wanted to debate, it would be very formal, it would be very respectful and very cordial. I'm not gonna wild out. Now, if you bring that type of energy, I'm gonna try to meet you where you at, and then we can go from there. But if it's not there, then it's a little different. Then I'll chill out, no doubt. I'll be on my best behavior. All right. So since we don't have nobody to defend Ahaya, my brothers that say Yahweh and YHWH, again, keep saying Yahweh and YHWH. Only thing I'm saying is if you're going to pick up a debate on the language, learn the mechanics of intelligible language, right? Learn grammar and be able to say, hey, this is how the grammar functions with our dialect, with our pronunciation, right? Learn morphology. Hey, when it looks like this, it's letting us know it's this, this, and that, right? You can pronounce it one way, but in order for the grammar to work, which the grammar can still work, you have to have some kind of guide for people who are perplexed and probably don't understand any better to learn it, right? Like what is proper syntax in Lashon Kodash? If you say, well, it's the same syntax in Hebrew, it's the way we pronounce it, then I can say, okay, I can probably rock with that. However, it is not distinct enough in phonology in order to separate it, let's say a noun from a verb, right? Unless, and again, like I said, I spoke to an elder about this years ago, gave him advice on how to create a grammar book in regards to the Lashon Kodash. I have not followed up with the elder. It's been years, but he hit me back, years ago and say, Divine, thank you for these, these major points for grammar. I'm trying to reconstruct the Lashon Kodash and make it an intelligible language. And I said, more power to you, right? And then I don't know what he did from there. But if anybody currently keeps the Lashon Kodash and want to do a gap analysis on it and see where it falls short and how you can fill in that gap, let me know. And I can help you do my best to construct a Hebrew grammar book for those who subscribe to it. Because my job is not to alienate those in our community. Stuff like this can be discussed. It can be conceded, whatever the case may be. I don't have a beef about that, right? The issue is those who make it a beef and use it to sow a seed of discord. Then I have to uproot that seed and I got to address it for what it is. And that is my approach. Y'all talking about a rematch? I don't know what's going on. yo, Hakah and Gadol, man, let me go close this off before y'all start going crazy in the chat, man. All praise to the Most High. Shout out to Hebrew Elevation in the building. Shalom. Yak, the whole time he told us names in Arabic. So this brother went from Russian to Arabic. So you're saying first I spoke Russian, now I'm speaking Arabic. That is what he's saying. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting this is because this is the thought form of a lot of us in this community, right? I'll do a session like this and people will call it Russian, Yiddish, or Arabic. You would have to know some Arabic in order to say that I'm speaking Arabic. I know a little bit of Arabic. That is not Arabic. Not at all, brother. Now, they're mutually relative languages, right? Because you can understand some things, but some things are different in both languages that makes them a distinct language on their own, but they come from the same phylum of language, which is the Semitic or Afro-Asiatic languages, right? By me staying on, I'm encouraging the build of the chat. So since Timothy says I'm speaking Russian, Yiddish, and Arabic, which I'm not fluent in any of those languages, by the way, I'm going to close off because apparently, like the brother said, some people you just can't save, and apparently he missed the entire session. With that, I'm going to fall back. Jeff Banner will throw you off. He's on that Yahu construct. So you're saying Jeff Banner is on the Yahu construct? Produce one of his works or a video of his where he's saying that. Drop that in the chat, School of Skills, before I close out. That's Judah Nats. What? Timothy is Judah Nats? That's definitely not Judah Nats. If it's Judah Nats, Judah, click the link and let's have a conversation, brother. I understood everything. You never said the names in Hebrew. I did say the names in Hebrew. Yahu, Yahusha, Yehoshua. Which part of that don't you understand? Which one don't you understand? All right. So with that, family, let me end out. I gave them more than enough time and the other trolls enough time to click the link and have a conversation. They don't want to have the real conversation. They're just trolling for attention in chat. Mods, timeout Timothy, 4A, Mr. Jeshurun, Nazarene of the Way, time them out, and we're going to close out. We're going to close out. All right. No problem. You love Yah anytime. So yeah, shout out to brother Deji in the building. What's going on, King? No, one servant, brother. let's aim for Sunday. See if our session works for the timeline for both of us on Sunday. And I also, yeah, definitely. I will be on Clubhouse after this, so I'll be there maybe in a couple of hours once I get settled with my family. I'll be on Clubhouse, and I'll be going in on there. Sometimes I just go to Clubhouse just to listen. Sometimes I go in there to participate. It all depends on the subject matter, the room, etc. But I'll be on there. If you want to follow me on Clubhouse, go to @DivineProspect. Look for me on Clubhouse. Add me. Let's build. If there's anything we can do, KHM, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, that can serve you better in the community, in your personal life, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Support the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Also, sign up for KHM if you want to do this community work together with us and implement the CSRM. Hit the links in the description below. Check out the videos. Sign up for KHM. And then lastly, I just want to make sure you'll see this before I close out. All right, the first thing is what we showed in the beginning of the stream. We showed you Jubilee Main Mission and Natural Path to Eden. So our Jubilee Main Mission is going to be for debt elimination and credit repair, debt elimination and credit repair in the community. If you need assistance with debt elimination and credit repair, we give you free consultation sessions. Email us at jubileemaymission@gmail.com, or you can just email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. But this detail is in the description below. Also, naturopathic health, education, consultation, etc. If you have issues about your health and you need someone to consult with, we provide free consultations as well as paid regimens. Email us at naturalpathtoeden@gmail.com. You'll see that in the description below as well. And lastly, if anybody in the community needs any of these life services, I do offer them. We do speaking engagements, Brit Milah. We do counseling. We do weddings. We do bar mitzvah or come of age ceremonies, immersions, tevilah, and we do feast days and funerals. All right. You'll see some of these services on the channel that are actually performed. But if anybody in the community needs these services, email us at divineprospectkhm@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to serve you. All right. All right. And with that, family, we also have our Ezra Institute. If anybody's interested in putting their children through homeschooling, virtual homeschooling, email us and we'll assist you with that. Anybody that is expecting, that needs a midwife or a doula, you can also email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Our Shift from Poor's Birthing Stool service is also available. And we have many other verses available. We're not just here spewing stuff on this channel and not actually having pragmatic services and programs that are actually resolving the societal ills in the community. If that brother had stayed in regards to what our paradigm offers from out of our paradigm, Jubilee Main Mission, Natural Path to Eden, Ezra Institute, Shifra and Poor's Birthing Stool, all of these are things that come from out of the Tanakh that represent the paradigm thinking of our community, and which we are creating a framework in order for it to resolve societal ills in the community. If Torah stamped on it and the Most High is getting glory out of it, his kavod, then we can't lose. All praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. All right. KHM DoorDash. We're going to put KHM on everything. All praise to the Most High. Maybe 2026 we have the KHM DoorDash. But we have other things as well, right? We have a trucking service as well if you're interested, where we deliver goods and we deliver items and essential necessities in times of calamity. So if there's an earthquake, if there's a tsunami somewhere, if there's a power outage and you need supplies and necessities delivered to your door, we do also offer that service as well. It's a really tapped in service, but we do have it. We're expanding it now. So our brothers and sisters out there who are truck drivers or able to deliver logistically goods and items and necessities, hit us up at KHM Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, or KHM or kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. And we will bring you into the fold so we can provide this service in times of need. Because you'll see historically in this country, whenever there was some kind of large scale calamity, we always get the short end of the stick. We rarely get the necessities and services we need. We always have to have our hand out and wait for master to give it to us. Now we're taking ownership of that. Now you pay a fee And anytime there's an emergency and you need necessities or items, we'll have one of our brothers or sisters who can truck through anything, bring the services. I mean, not the services, excuse me, the goods and products and items and necessities that you need, toiletries, etc., to your home. One thing I learned that during COVID, I realized that toilet paper and paper towel was like the greatest commodities that nobody can get access to. That was scary. People will skip everything else and make sure they have some toilet paper and paper towel. So I know when the end comes, I'm going to make sure we have ceilings high supplies of paper towel and toilet paper. Yo, Christian Corey's, I'm closing out. Y'all tripping, man. Shout out to HaKodesh Management in the building, man. Y'all look, hey, Christian Corey, you, Yahu, Gadol, Hakal, all the rest of y'all need to be on here every Friday at this time, brother, because we be going in, man. Y'all gonna love this show, man. Every Friday. I know some of y'all come in here from time to time, but y'all need to be regulars over here. Shout out to my brother Yahu, Duad. Man, I don't know why this thing is so small. Hold on, it's probably because. Okay, Yahu Dawid Ben Yochanan. Thank you, my brother, for your contributions as well. All praises. I think I got everybody. Let's talk Bible. All right. Hit that last one before we close out. Less than 5 minutes will be 3 hours here. This long session. I don't know why y'all love these Freestyle Friday long sessions. We got the trolls in the building as usual, man, putting out information, scholarship, academic work, giving praises to the Most High Yah. Let you know the services and programs we offer in the community. We also have a ton of products that KHM offers. You'll see them in the description below. If anybody needs free counseling session, the link is in the description below. Click on the link and we will provide you a free counseling session at no charge. That's why it's free. So the people hear free and they think it's a charge. There's no charge. And we have tons of people in the chat that can attest that we give great counseling service. So if you need a free counseling service, we offer that. Click the link in the description below so that you can book time on my calendar and we can meet, we can talk, break bread, and whatever else you need that we can provide. We're here to serve the community. All right. All right. Troy Bowl Fudge Bottoms, Muslims in Christ. I have no clue what's going on here, but I blame Corey. This is Corey's fault. I blame Corey for this. All right. All right. Brother Ash, we're about to head out, brother. So the pseudo-Clementine homilies does represent a sect of Jewish Christians of the 1st century CE. A homily pretty much is like a sermon or speeches. They call it pseudo-Clementine because it's associated with the Clementine works that we see from the 1st century as well. They call it pseudo because the name betrays the actual text itself. We don't know if it's actually written by Clementine to him or from him or whatever. But it does represent a sect of the Jewish Christians in the 1st century CE. So a lot of teachings in there does represent those early groups like the Nazarenes, the Ebionites, etc. Right? There's some great books on that if you're interested. Shout out to Coach Vaughn Park in the building. Shabbat Shalom. Everybody's just jumping up in here. I don't know what's going on right now, man. But yes, but if you're interested in that, Brother Ash, we got that on a Patreon. I got like 6-7 books on that get more information in regards to those homilies and how they're connected to those 1st century CE Jewish Christians. But definitely hit up the Patreon. It's all on there. All right, my brother. All right. So shout out, y'all. Let me close out, man. My kids are getting boisterous. I gotta put the fear of the Most High in them in a reverential way and get them in order, right? Because, they do all of this when I'm busy and occupied. But when I'm around, you don't hear all of this madness and stuff like that. We control the madness. Fathers have a very important role, and that role is to keep our kids in order without robbing them of their childhood. Sometimes some fathers are overly strict and kids can't be kids. I'm not like that. What I do is I put order within chaos and create balance. That's what we do. All right. And not taking away from the sisters. Thank you for your contributions in raising these children as well. But we need more fathers in the household. More fathers in the household. All right. You can say a lot of stuff, but you'll win my respect best if you are an active father, even if you're not in a household. Because again, people break up, divorce, or whatever. Are you an active father in your child's life? Not a passive father, an active father in your child's life. If you can't do that and you want to have a serious debate with me or whatever, I cannot respect that, bro. I just can't. You know what I'm saying? So all situations are different, and I understand, I respect that, but we need more fathers, because if we don't have more fathers, guess what? We're going to have some more wayward children that lack guidance, lack a father figure. And guess what? Those are the ones that's easily preyed upon by this society. And we got to protect the vulnerable, the oppressed, the fatherless, according to Torah. You understand? Okay. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Peace and shalom. See you on the next live stream, man. Shout out to everybody that joined this chat. All praise to the Most High. Y'all pray the Most High will bless y'all as you leave on out, as you go into your homes, as you continue to do the kingdom work in your own communities. Most High bless their hands. Most High bless their mouths. Most High bless their feet for wherever they go, whatever they do, and whatever they say will best represent you. All right. Like Yeshua says, he says what? Let your good work show before men that they may see and glorify your Father in heaven. Most High Yah gets the glory. All praises. Love your family. Thank you for watching. See you on the next live stream. Man, hate to leave y'all, but gotta go. Peace and shalom. Shalom, shalom, family.